Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Links are in the description below. Please show some love of the author and me. On to the show.
Knowing that it was most likely just a coincidence, Lin Li continued to start linking the remaining islands on the nautical map. There were 7 islands in total, and Lin Li randomly linked any 2 of them together by a line, only to finally make an even more surprising discovery. Not only was the location that Jeremiah inquired about at the intersection of those lines, the location that Giulio mentioned was likewise at another intersection. The discovery he made in the other world was also at an intersection. It seemed that the 7 islands where the Void Spirit Magath were placed had a real connection with the so-called Cursed Island. However, the lines between the 7 islands were now resembling a net that engulfed the sea, with several intersections between the lines. Could it be that the island would move around the sea? Perhaps the ice island would really appear at every intersection in this sea. But Lin Li didn't have that much time to explore all the intersections one by one. They were now in the endless ocean, where that area could only be considered a tiny part of the sea, but even then, it was extremely large, and if one were unlucky, they would probably end up spending months on searching it point by point. Lin Li stopped and took 2 steps back to carefully observe the net on the nautical map and the 3 points of intersection that had been identified as areas that the island had appeared in. He did not think that that ice island would randomly appear in any of the intersection points, and that it definitely followed some kind of pattern instead. Giulio, send my orders to arrange for the star to search these locations according to the sequence. Lin Li immediately ordered Giulio after identifying the 7 intersection points on the nautical map. Yes, Captain. Although Giulio couldn't understand the significance of Lin Li's annotations on the map, he immediately turned around and left the pilot house before starting to order the star, S crew to sail quickly towards the first intersection point. Although the distance from one point to another on the map seemed to be just a few centimeters, that distance would probably be magnified to thousands of nautical miles in the endless ocean. Fortunately, the star was powered by the alchemical power system, or else it would probably take a long time for them to arrive if they relied only on the power of the sails. Thus, the star was fully powered, and she searched each point according to Lin Li's annotations. After searching the sea for another 8 days, they felt the temperature dropping, and large ice floes began to appear on the sea. They finally saw the ice-covered island. Captain, that should be the legendary island. As soon as Giulio discovered the island, he immediately ran to report to Lin Li, feeling as if a huge boulder had been lifted off his chest. Of course, when Giulio reported, Lin Li had actually also seen the island that was gradually appearing in front of them, as well as the surrounding battleships that had been frozen for thousands of years and now looked like ice sculptures. When the Gilded Kingdom provoked the Felon Kingdom, Lin Li intervened and froze the Gilded Kingdom's battleships, creating an extraordinary monument for the Felon Kingdom. However, it was nothing compared to what was presented before him now. However, just as the star was approaching the ice island quickly, a black shadow suddenly darted out from the sky and flew towards the star like a lightning. In the blink of an eye, it had already reached the ship. There was a huge ice blast worm flying above the star. It was almost the same size as the star, and was covered in thick blue ice armor and surrounded by silver clouds that were composed of ice crystals. With the appearance of this ice blast worm, the sea around the ship quickly froze and extended towards the hull of the star as if it had come to life. In this situation, the speed of the star plunged to the minimum. In the beginning, the sounds of the ship could still be heard coming from the bow, but they vanished in no time. Although the star was powered by an alchemical power system, and it was considered extremely powerful, the ship was now frozen together with the ice. It was as if it was moving together with an iceberg on top of it. No matter how powerful it was, its power was bound to be exhausted eventually. At the same time, a huge sanctuary-level power had also shrouded the entire star, causing the sailors on the vessel to fall onto the floor. Even though the sailors on the star were all extremely competent, they were only so compared to ordinary people, and they were just insignificant nobodies in front of a sanctuary powerhouse. Besides, the ice blast worm that had suddenly appeared was not at an ordinary level of the sanctuary realm, and based on the massive power alone, it was obvious that it was at least level 26 or level 27. Even among sanctuary powerhouses, it was considered extremely powerful. The sailors who had yet to even reach the legendary level obviously could not resist the power that was like the heavenly might itself. At this moment, Lin Li, who was initially in the pilot house, also appeared outside in the flash. He simply humphed when he was faced with the sanctuary level might emitted by the ice blast worm. It was like a shocking bolt of lightning, and the massive sanctuary level power vanished in an instant like snow that melted under the sun. Immediately afterwards, Three figures leapt out from behind Lin Li and darted straight towards the Ice Blast Wyrm. They were Connorus and two undead servants. The actual combat power that they were able to exert was not inferior to that of an ordinary sanctuary powerhouse. Of course, no matter what, Connorus and the others had yet to step into the sanctuary realm after all. Hence, they could only fight with those who were in the early stages of the sanctuary realm. The three of them probably could not contend the Wyrm even with joint efforts. The Ice Blast Wyrm was already level 26 or level 27, which meant that it could be considered a middle stage sanctuary powerhouse. However, after the three, including Connorus, pounced on the Ice Blast Wyrm, Lin Li did not seem to want to attack at all. Instead, he stood still in the air and watched the battle between Connorus' group and the Ice Blast Wyrm. In terms of level, the Ice Blast Wyrm was much more powerful than the three of them. In fact, if the Ice Blast Wyrm had been replaced by a powerhouse like Elder Zoomer, Lin Li would have already struck at this point. However, Lin Li could now feel that although the Ice Blast Wyrm was level 26 or level 27, its realm did not seem to match its level. In other words, this Ice Blast Wyrm somehow could not truly display the strength of a mid-rank sanctuary powerhouse yet. Connorus and the two undead servants had reached the peak of the legendary realm long ago. However, as Lin Li became stronger, he far surpassed them. With their strength, the help they could provide Lin Li would probably gradually become insignificant if they could not step into the sanctuary realm. That was also the reason that Lin Li had simply become an onlooker this time. He hoped that the battle with the Ice Blast Wyrm would allow Connorus and the two undead servants to hone their skills and reach the sanctuary realm sooner. Besides, with the accumulation of strength of Connorus and the two undead servants, they would definitely improve rapidly after reaching the sanctuary realm. They would probably directly reach the point where they could fight mid-stage sanctuary powerhouses alone. Only when they obtained such strength would they be able to provide greater help to Lin Li and take on more important tasks in the future. The weapon that Connorus used was the Eternal Frost Blade that had belonged to Retribution Knight Rodheart. While rushing towards the Ice Blast Wyrm, Connorus hurriedly chanted the mysterious ancient deity's incantation. As he did that, a huge magical rune instantly condensed in the air, emitting a terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth, and being just like a massive seal that stomped on the Ice Blast Wyrm with a loud roar. The area around the Ice Blast Wyrm was surrounded by ice crystal clouds. When Connorus attacked, they seemed to have come to life and started stirring upwards. When they reached the spot in front of the Ice Blast Wyrm, the ice crystal clouds became extremely thick, as if they had coalesced into a huge ice shield to collide with the incoming magic runes. The ice crystal cloud around the Ice Blast Wyrm's body was not formed by frozen water vapor. In each of the ice crystal particles, there were laws of ice instead, and there was a microcosm that could not be seen with the naked eye in every single particle. The countless ice crystals condensed into an ice shield that was even more solid than icebergs that were tens of thousands of years old. Even if a beginner-level sanctuary powerhouse attacked at full force, they probably would not be able to form a single crack in the ice shield. More importantly, because of the existence of the small domain world and the ice crystals, the huge ice shield had a strong defensive ability against spatial attacks. The countless ice crystals constituted domain worlds, and each domain world was a different space. It was as if it was composed of countless layers of faults, which made the Ice Blast Wyrm's defense almost impenetrable. However, Connorus was never one who fought with brute strength, and when he had still been an ancient demon deity, he mastered the art of deception and scheming. He now had the powerful perfect body, but his nature did not change because of that. He knew long ago that his power could not be compared to a level 26 or level 27 Ice Blast Wyrm. Hence, although the ancient magic runes looked extremely terrifying, there was actually another mystery involved. In an instant, the massive magic runes collided with the Ice Blast Wyrm's ice shield, but there was no violent sound. Instead, it was as if a burning red iron stuck into the water as they fused with the ice shield. Immediately afterwards, the magic runes that had been branded into the ice shield emitted a dim ray of light that almost instantly dyed the entire ice shield with a grayish color. At the same time, the blade of eternal ice Connorus was holding also swung at the Ice Blast Wyrm. The layers of space were intertwined, and they were already crashing into the ice shield that had been dyed gray. At this moment, a bizarre thing happened as the massive ice shield, that still looked extremely solid and sturdy, turned into nothing in front of the space slashes. The dozens of space slash penetrated the gray ice shield and blasted the Ice Blast Wyrm before it could react. At this moment, the space slashes landed on the ice armor of the Ice Blast Wyrm, causing countless ice flakes to blast in all directions. When Connorus' attack landed on the Ice Blast Wyrm, Ulfalusi and Norfaler followed suit and attacked. Ulfalusi summoned Crimson, the humorous Wyrm, which spurted a corrosive dragon breath that swept over to the Ice Blast Wyrm, like a storm as soon as it appeared. On the other hand, Ulfalusi raised his scepter, and quickly chanted a series of magic curse incantations that would corrode, weaken, and slow down as they surged towards the Ice Blast Wyrm like a tidal wave. Although Ulfalusi had not stepped into the sanctuary realm, and those curses could not have too much impact on the Ice Blast Wyrm yet, a single trace of the Ice Blast Wyrm's power being weakened would have a huge impact on the entire battle. Besides, the Ice Blast Wyrm did not have the realm to match its level 26 or level 27 power, and its resistance to Ulfalusi's curses seemed to be far less than that of an ordinary sanctuary powerhouse. Hence, under the onslaught of Ulfalusi's curses, the Ice Blast Wyrm's movements gradually became sluggish, while its ice armor began to lose its luster. Perhaps because the changes were too slow and the results were not immediate, the Ice Blast Wyrm would sooner or later be hampered by the curses as long as there were no unexpected changes in the battle. From afar, the massive Ice Blast Wyrm could be seen being engulfed by a black line that was constantly wrapping around it. It was none other than the vampire Norfaler, who had transformed into a black bolt of lightning. The ice crystal cloud around the Ice Blast Wyrm was extremely powerful as it could freeze all intruders. However, there was still the power of the Ice Blast Wyrm Sindera in Norfaler's body, which was extraordinarily resistant to freezing. The Ice Blast Wyrm Sindera was once the patriarch of the Ice Blast Wyrms, and one of the few powerhouses who were at the very pinnacle. Although Norfaler still could not be compared to Sindera, the king of the Ice Blast Wyrms after devouring Syndra's blood, his power was no worse than that of the average Ice Blast Wyrm. At this point, Norfaler had already spread his wings, which were covered in golden patterns and magic runes that automatically emitted layers of powerful power, allowing them to effortlessly push the incoming ice crystal clouds away. Hence, although Norfaler was in the ice crystal cloud, he seemed to have a unique passage that kept him from being affected by the power of the ice crystal cloud. Norfaler was holding a pair of Heaven's Wrath daggers that were emitting rays of light dozens of meters long, which continuously slashed the ice armor of the Ice Blast Wyrm. Each strike that landed on the ice armor would leave a deep mark, and the ice armor would be slowed down greatly under the influence of the residual power of the Heaven's Wrath daggers. Facing three opponents who were at the peak of the legendary realm, but had power that was comparable to that of an early-stage sanctuary powerhouse, the Ice Blast Wyrm was not disheveled and overwrought, but it was quite tough for it to deal with them. First, it had to face Conorus, who spewed out the dragon breath that could freeze even space, followed by the ice crystal cloud. Next, Ulfalusi launched countless ice spears. The ice armor on its body also shot out a cluster of ice spikes that blocked Norfaler, who was attacking him from time to time like a mosquito. However, when the Ice Blast Wyrm was faced with their attacks, it had actually already lost the upper hand. Hence, it was actually being led by the nose by the three of them. Upon sight of such a scene, Lin Li shook his head slightly at the side, even though he could tell long ago that the Ice Blast Wyrm's realm was not in line with its power, and its combat power was definitely greatly reduced. The Ice Blast Wyrm's behavior exceeded Lin Li's expectations. It was no longer the issue of realm. It was just like a beginner who only had raw power, even without any combat tactics. Being a level 26 or level 27 powerhouse, it was able to suppress Conorus and the two undead creatures. After all, the three of them were still not powerful enough to fight toe-to-toe against the Ice Blast Wyrm Sindera. Once they were suppressed, they would not be able to escape if they could not find a way to resolve the issue. However, the Ice Blast Wyrm actually took their attacks in stride, which was equivalent to giving up its advantage. In the end, it was fooled by Conorus and the other two. It was not actually foolish, as it knew to tackle the situation at hand. However, it was stupid enough to give up its advantage. That made Lin Li confused. Logically speaking, the wisdom of the Ice Blast Wyrms was definitely not inferior to that of ordinary humans, and some were even slyer than humans. Besides, this Ice Blast Wyrm had already stepped into the sanctuary realm, and even though it was not exactly intelligent, it shouldn't have become silly after reaching the sanctuary realm. However, when Lin Li was still feeling a little bewildered, the Ice Blast Wyrm suddenly seemed to have either become enlightened or turned foolish. Its massive power erupted, and it no longer cared about how Conorus and the others attacked it. The sanctuary-level mana was surging out like a raging flood as countless powerful Ice series magic spells surged towards Conorus and the others. Conorus and the others were caught off guard. Due to the fact that Norfaler had been close by, he almost got stabbed by the countless ice arrows, so he had no choice but to retreat in distress. On the other hand, Conorus also immediately felt the surrounding temperature plunging to bottom. Even his perfect body had also somewhat stiffened. Compared to Conorus and Norfaler, Ulfalusi was in fact only a little inferior. With the help of Crimson the Humorous Wyrm, his strength was on par with theirs. However, In the face of the Ice Blast Wyrm's sudden outburst, Ufalusa's shortcomings were also exposed immediately. The humorous Wyrm Crimson was engulfed by the ice in the blink of an eye, almost becoming immobile. If not for the fact that the humorous Wyrm could fly without using wings, it would have long fallen. Faced with the sudden outburst of the Ice Blast Wyrm, Connorus and the others stopped feeling contemptuous as they truly treated it as a life and death battle from then on. At the same time that Connorus was wielding the Eternal Frost Blade, he quickly chanted an ancient demon deity incantation, and a massive black vortex appeared in the sky. Several bolts of lightning with a large girth darted out of the vortex, blasting at the Ice Blast Wyrm continuously. The bat wings on Norfler's back expanded by several times at once, and the golden patterns and runes on them also emitted dazzling rays of light which dyed the entire pair of wings golden yellow. At the same time, Norfler's body was also covered in golden patterns that gave him a powerful aura. The Heaven's Wrath daggers in his hands also emitted a ray of light that was nearly 100 meters long. The terrifying power would probably be able to slice off a mountain peak with a casual swing of the sword. Ufalusi, who stabilized his body, was surrounded by black fog, and countless spirits wailed in it, causing the space to become distorted. The Ice Series magic spells were shattered as they spread towards the Ice Blast Wyrm's body. At this moment, Connorus and the two undead servants had almost channeled all their power. The attacks launched by the three of them surged like a storm towards the Ice Blast Wyrm with a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth, resulting in countless cracks in space. Seeing this, Lin Li, who was watching from the side, finally nodded. This is what training should be like. The battle before was just like child's play. Although the Ice Blast Wyrm had level 26 or level 27 power, Connorus and the others were far from what the Ice Blast Wyrm could compare to, be it in terms of combat experience or combat skills, especially since the power of the Ice Blast Wyrm did not match its realm, and it definitely wasn't going to be easy for it to rely on that power to defeat Connorus and the other two. Connorus and the others fought with the Ice Blast Wyrm in the sky for hours, and Ufalusi continuously released various curses, accumulating them. Under the influence of the countless curses, the Ice Blast Wyrm was visibly weakening as the ice armor on its body began to automatically fall off. The ice crystal clouds around it also faded. At this moment, Norfler released a full-blown attack with all his might, turning his body into a golden bolt of lightning. The two Heaven's Wrath daggers intertwined and blasted the Ice Blast Wyrm's head like a golden drill. At the same time, Connorus' ancient magic spell was also completed as a huge magic array appeared out of thin air below the Ice Blast Wyrm. Countless black tentacles shot out from the magic array towards the Ice Blast Wyrm. With a loud boom, the Ice Blast Wyrm that Ufalusi and Connorus suppressed could not evade the attack from Norfler in time at all, just getting blasted. Like a golden bolt of lightning, Norfler's attack instantly pierced through the skull of the Ice Blast Wyrm. Immediately afterwards, they saw large chunks of the ice armor falling off like a melting glacier, soon revealing the true appearance of the ice armor underneath. At this moment, they realized that the so-called Ice Blast Wyrm was actually just a humorous Wyrm, but it had been turned into an Ice Blast Wyrm because it was wrapped in the ice armor. Seeing this, Lin Li also understood why the Ice Blast Wyrm behaved in such an idiotic manner during the battle. Connorus and the others, who were still proud of having defeated a level 26 or level 27 sanctuary powerhouse, immediately turned sullen when they saw the skeleton underneath the ice armor. Compared to a real Ice Blast Wyrm, the power of the humorous Wyrm was far inferior, even though it had already reached the sanctuary realm. However, how did the humorous Wyrm run to this island and regain the appearance of an Ice Blast Wyrm? Lin Li recalled what he saw in the other world, but there was no sign of the humorous Wyrm at all. It seemed that it had come to the island for an unknown reason. After all, it had no foundation on this island. After killing the humorous Wyrm, Ufalusi also went to study the skeleton. He initially thought that he would be able to get the skeleton of an Ice Blast Wyrm. However, after taking 2 glances, he couldn't help but be greatly disappointed as he said to Lin Li, "Master, that's just an ordinary humorous Wyrm. It seems to be an ice dragon, the descendant of the Ice Blast Wyrm." In Anral, the ice dragon was almost on par with the green dragon. Although it could be considered a Wyrm, it was far inferior compared to a genuine ancient Wyrm. Perhaps in the eyes of ordinary people, both green dragons and ice dragons were the most powerful creatures in Anral, but to Lin Li and Connorus, the ice dragon was no different from other magical beasts. Since the ice dragon's skeleton had little purpose, Lin Li did not bother to recover it, and only let Norfler dig out the ice dragon's dragon crystal. However, when he saw it, Lin Li finally understood why the ice dragon had level 27 power. It turned out that the dragon crystal of the ice dragon was not as regular as other dragon crystals, as each side was of a different size. It looked just like a large and a small dragon crystal being glued together. Lin Li grabbed the dragon crystal and tried to sense its condition with his mental strength, only to realize that the appearance reflected the actual situation. The smaller part of the dragon crystal was the dragon crystal of a true ice dragon, while the larger one was the Ice Blast Wyrm's dragon crystal. However, the soul brand was no longer present on the Ice Blast Wyrm's dragon crystal, as it seemed to have been erased by some power. It seemed that the humorous ice dragon found the Ice Blast Wyrm's dragon crystal and wanted to fuse it with its own dragon crystal, thus resulting in such a deformed dragon crystal. That was also the reason that the humorous ice dragon got part of the Ice Blast Wyrm's legacy and had level 26 or level 27 power. Unfortunately, it could not reach the corresponding realm before complete fusion. Lin Li could not think of what he could do with the deformed dragon crystal. It definitely wouldn't work as a mana source, as one part of it was at the sanctuary level, while the other was at the peak of the legendary level. The dragon crystal itself was unbalanced, so it definitely couldn't be a stable mana source. However, Lin Li was not short on sanctuary level magical crystals now, hence, he decided to just put it away before figuring out how to use it later. With the death of the fake Ice Blast Wyrm, the ice around the star stopped growing, and the ship soon broke through the surrounding ice before continuing to sail towards the ice island nearby. 10 minutes later, the star had reached the edge of the ice island, where the layers of ice that would not melt for ages were not something that the star could break through. Under Lin Li's command, the vessel stopped and was engulfed in a layer of light that prevented it from freezing. Looking at the depths of the ice island, Lin Li thought about it for a while before turning around and going back to the pilot house. Soon, a group of mages from the Tower of Dusk walked out. They did not belong to the same batch of mages Lin Li had brought over when he first explored the Sky Castle, but the ones who had stayed at the Tower of Dusk during those 3 years. The mages that Lin Li had brought to the Sky Castle had already gone through enough live combat training, and all they lacked was the accumulation of mana. Hence, they could successfully step into the legendary realm sooner or later. Due to the magic tides, the mages who had stayed at the Tower of Dusk managed to push to the legendary level. However, just like those pseudo-sanctuary powerhouses, they were only considered pseudo-legendary mages. With the previous battle with the Ice Blast Wyrm, Lin Li knew that the expedition to the ice island would probably be tumultuous. With his current strength, he did not have to worry about magical beasts, but for the mages of the Tower of Dusk, it would be considered a good training. Hence, Lin Li brought the pseudo-legendary mages over in a bid to let them train and become true legendary mages through the battles. After Lin Li led them to disembark from the star, Angelano, who was still dressed in the amusing colorful armor, commanded the crowd to carry large pieces of alchemical equipment off the ship. They were all created after research based on the Immortal King's alchemical notes. There were offensive weapons as well as defensive shields and items for other purposes. Lin Li also had to have his own weapons on the Sky Castle, instead of relying on himself to purchase weapons from various sources. After all, there were some things that couldn't be bought with just money, such as the Gilded Kingdom's ship cannons and the Sky Breaker of the Dwarf Kingdom. The ship cannons purchased from the Gilded Kingdom were just enough for the star, and Lin Li would have to purchase more if he wanted to equip the Sky Castle with them. Although the cannon was powerful, it was a singular weapon that could not be the only weapon used on the star. As for the legendary Sky Breaker, the Dwarven King's attitude was still unclear, and it would take some time for the opinions in the Dwarf Kingdom to be unified. God knew when they would be able to equip the Sky Castle with Sky Breaker. Besides, even if the Dwarf Kingdom agreed to the suggestion of a joint manufacture of Sky Breakers, the Sky Breaker was not a magical crystal cannon, and it could not be built overnight. The first to disembark from the star was a large steel chariot that looked like a tank, except that there was no turret or cannon, but an intricate and complex alchemy array. The power center of the alchemy array was inlaid with a huge golden magical crystal, which Lin Li had removed from the golden behemoth. Golden behemoths had incredible defense, and they could even resist the power of Lin Li's world sword. However, the perverse defensive ability was not attributed to the golden behemoth's massive body size. Besides, it could become one with the earth, so when Lin Li killed the golden behemoth, it was when he managed to lure the golden behemoth into the air. This magical crystal from the golden behemoth's body not only contained sanctuary level mana, but also the mysterious ability to become one with the earth. Hence, Lin Li used the magical crystal to build an alchemy array with a powerful defensive ability together with Angelano. They then installed it in the steel chariot and conducted a test. The steel chariot could open a massive defensive field and become one with the earth like the golden behemoth. In fact, it could even resist the full force of a sanctuary powerhouse's strike. The steel chariot was followed by an oddly shaped magical weapon that looked like a steel tower. There was a fist-sized eye on the top of the steel tower, which Lin Li had obtained after killing the Tempest Beast King in Garesco's meditation land. It could emit a powerful chaotic thunderbolt, whose power was no less than that of the sanctuary realm. The Tempest Beast King's eyeball was initially meant to be a weapon of Tempest Beast King. Besides, with the power of the chaotic thunderbolt, it could definitely be considered one of the most powerful weapons on the star. However, the star was going to be equipped with sky breakers sooner or later, while the Tempest Beast King's eye would be used for something else in the future. Hence, Angelano designed such a weapon to maximize the power of the chaotic thunderbolt. In the rear, there were two crossbow cannons of the same size, which seemed to be similar to ordinary defensive crossbows. However, if someone with greater and more profound knowledge of inscriptions saw the crossbow cannons, they would definitely be astonished to the point of having their jaw drop. There were complex mageths inscribed on the crossbows, each of which were probably guru level. The two crossbow cannons were created by Lin Li based on some of the characteristics of the Stars of Fury, while incorporating some of the Sky Breaker's concepts. It had been a long time since Lin Li obtained the blueprint of the Sky Breaker. He had naturally studied it carefully too. Although there was no way to create a Stars of Fury on his own, he vaguely felt that the Sky Breaker seemed to have some connection to the Stars of Fury. Hence, he designed and created those crossbow cannons, based on his memory of the Stars of Fury and the Sky Breaker's blueprint. Although it might not compare to the Sky Breaker, or the Stars of Fury, its power was probably much greater than the average magical crystal cannons. Unfortunately, Lin Li had to be the one to personally create the crossbow cannons because he was the only one who was clear about the issues that involved the Stars of Fury, which were hard to explain and difficult to learn easily. Hence, there was no way to mass-produce the crossbow cannons. It was also impossible to install a large number of them on the star and the Sky Castle. They could not replace the ship cannons and magical crystal cannons of the Gilded Kingdom. There was also some magical equipment based on Lin Li's ideas that Angelano subsequently realized using alchemy. There were also some contraptions that were based on classic alchemical equipment from the era of the goblins. There were also ones that Angelano had come up with while letting his imagination run wild, such as magic wings that would allow ordinary people to fly into the sky. For legendary mages, flying was as easy as walking, and even archmages would have the ability to fly into the sky using the levitation spell. However, in the short era of the goblins, magic wings were necessary alchemical equipment for the majority of goblins. Due to the fact that goblins could not learn magic, they had to rely on alchemical equipment to fly. It seemed that the magic wings were somewhat useless. After all, the legendary mages could use the power of flight, and obviously wouldn't use magic wings. However, although the power of flight was a basic magic spell, which almost every legendary mage knew how to cast, it was a magic spell that had to be maintained with a constant output of mana. Not every legendary mage had nearly infinite mana like Lin Li, who could almost ignore the consumption of mana. The magic wings consumed only magical crystals, which allowed the legendary mage to maintain the amount of mana at the peak so as to deal with various situations after a long flight. Hence, even for legendary powerhouses, magic wings were very useful. After carrying all kinds of alchemical equipment off the star, Lin Li led the team towards the center of the ice island. In fact, the location where the star docked was not actually the ice island, but an extended area. As the Tower of Dusk's team marched, they could still see the battleships of the Gilded Kingdom that had been frozen for thousands of years around them. They could also see the sailors on the decks of the battleships. Their faces could no longer be seen, and they had already formed a hellish scene because of the cold and gloomy frost. The white snow and crystalline ice were extremely horrifying instead of giving off a pristine vibe. Even the mages of the Tower of Dusk who had stepped into the legendary realm couldn't help but be fearful and horrified at this time. After all, they had not experienced anything major. Although the Tower of Dusk had been in a difficult situation in the breezy plains during the 3 years that Lin Li had been away, the scene wasn't as shocking. Lin Li had also long sensed the change in the mood of those mages. He had to admit that he had made the right choice to bring them out for training. Such a scene was enough to make their emotions fluctuate and even cause them fear. If they really encountered a dangerous situation, they definitely wouldn't be able to stay calm. However, Lin Li did not point it out, as he felt that the greenhorns would only mature psychologically after experiencing a few proper battles. There was no need for him to enlighten them again like a psychological mentor. The Tower of Dusk's team soon crossed the gloomy and hellish Iceland, and the rookie mages in the team were secretly relieved. At this time, the Tower of Dusk's team had finally stepped on the island. Though there was still an unknown thickness of ice beneath their feet, The area of the ice island was so large that it didn't seem different from a continent, and undulating mountains could be seen in the distance. However, everything on this ice island was wrapped in ice and snow, forming a large white patch, which was hard to look at. Hearing Lin Li's order, the team stopped temporarily for a short break. Although the distance of the previous journey wasn't too long, the rookie mages were still extremely stressed out. Hence, Lin Li told them to take a break lest they failed to concentrate in battle and make mistakes that should not be made. However, while the team was resting, Lin Li did not idle. Even Connorus and the two undead servants did not know what he went to do. They only knew he had left the team alone, but soon returned. Connorus and the others didn't ask much, knowing that Lin Li would definitely say something if he wanted to. If Lin Li didn't say anything, they wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. After Lin Li's return, the team from the Tower of Dusk once again regrouped, and slowly moved in the direction of the center of the ice island. Thanks to a short rest, the mages had indeed recovered a lot, and were at least not as panicky as before. During the team's advancement, Lin Li sent Norfaller out to reconnoiter in advance. Lin Li was probably the only one who would send a peak legendary powerhouse out as a scout. However, as a natural assassin, Norfaller would definitely make a good scout. They traveled for nearly 50 kilometers, and could already be considered to have reached the depths of the ice island. They could no longer see the sea, and only the mountain peaks could be seen. Occasionally, they would chance upon some houses, but most of them had long been crushed by the snow. Upon returning, Norfaller reported to Lin Li, but Lin Li merely turned around to look at the rookies without giving any instructions. He simply let Norfaller continue to go ahead and scout. As soon as Norfaller left, the team suddenly came over with shuffling sounds of footsteps. Immediately afterwards, they saw a group of monsters that had white fur and were 3 or 4 meters tall. They were covered in ice, and were charging towards the group while roaring. "That's a snow monster," someone in the Tower of Dusk's team roared loudly. The white-furred monsters that rushed over were none other than a famous magical beast in the far northern ice plains of Anral continent. The snow monsters were like giant white-furred apes. Adult snow monsters were at least level 15, and their arm strength was at least 1,000 pounds of great power. With a single slap, they could turn a boulder into dust. Besides, the snow monsters also had ice element affinity spells, and could launch ice element magic spells that were below level 15. In fact, they could even create a natural disaster like the snowstorm. Most importantly, the snow monsters would emit a type of retardation curse, which was basically a simple version of a magical domain. As long as someone stepped into the region, their movements would be slowed down greatly. However, compared to the Tower of Dusk's team, the strength of the snow monsters was still quite inferior. After all, the Tower of Dusk still had legendary mages. Even the pseudo-legendary mages could definitely deal with the snow monsters well. Seeing that there were hundreds of snow monsters rushing down, the mages of the Tower of Dusk immediately got into a formation and raised their staffs, all ready for a battle. Logically speaking, the rookie mage's response was reasonable, but Lin Li couldn't help but shake his head slightly. There was nothing wrong with being careful, but too much caution was not a good thing. The monsters were indeed powerful to ordinary people, but they were nothing in the face of legendary powerhouses. However, even the snow monsters with average abilities made the legendary mages cautious. Besides, when the snow monsters got nearer, the rookie mages became more and more solemn. In fact, they were even clutching their staffs so tightly that their knuckles had turned pale. Although they didn't do anything wrong, the scene seemed rather amusing as they looked just like rats that were scared by a cat. "Attack!" exclaimed Doric, Alan's deputy who was in charge of commanding the rookie mages. However, he was also a rookie who hadn't participated in many battles. Doric ordered them to attack after the group of snow monsters reached the theoretical best magic range. Next, the group of rookie wizards quickly chanted incantations, and the gemstones on their staffs began glistening immediately afterwards, while a terrifying magic storm swept the snow monsters. They were a group of legendary mages. Even if a few of them were still only pseudo-legendary mages, the magic they cast was not comparable to that of ordinary archmages. The terrifying magic storm instantly engulfed the group of unlucky snow monsters, not giving them a chance to attack at all. A few seconds later, everything disappeared, and even the small mountain was blown away, while the snow monsters were turned into powder. The rookie mages couldn't help but cheer joyously when they saw the snow monsters had vanished. Doric, their commander, also quickly ran towards Lin Li, who had a peculiar expression. However, he reported the news to him very seriously. Seeing this scene, Lin Li could not help but cover his forehead. However, he didn't say anything, and simply waved his hand to instruct Doric to return. However, that was a good thing, because the rookie mages at least would no longer feel as badly because of the sinister scene of the ice island after the battle. They embarked on their journey again, and Connor's leaned closer to Lin Li smilingly. Flick, after seeing their performance, aren't you going to say something? What's there to say? They'll learn their lesson after suffering a loss, Lin Li said in a hostile tone. The way the rookie mages behaved had truly embarrassed him. Fortunately, there were no teams from other forces present. Just like Lin Li said, they wouldn't feel the pain and learn their lesson unless they suffered some losses. Soon, the group of rookie mages from the Tower of Dusk finally learned their lesson. After they blasted the magical beasts they encountered with all their might time and time again, they finally discovered that they had unknowingly consumed more than half of their mana. Although Lin Li had equipped his mages with extremely high-quality magical equipment meant for defense, attacking, rapid mana recovery, and many other purposes. In particular, the magical equipment for rapid mana recovery almost allowed the mages to have several times more mana than the other mages of the same level. However, those pieces of magical equipment were not artifacts after all. The recovery of mana was rapid, but it wasn't enough to support the repeated output of powerful magic spells. Besides, in an environment like the Ice Island, the magical elements in the space were far less active than in the outside world. That made their mana recovery much slower than before. The snow demons that the team encountered this time were not ordinary magical beasts that could be got rid of easily, though it was mostly because of the environment here. The snow demons were at least at the legendary level, and many of them were at level 21 or level 22. The rookie mages, who consumed plenty of mana, were pitted against the snow demons that had an absolute advantage, thus making the battle unmatched in the first place. After launching several waves of attacks, the Tower of Dusk's mages had no choice but to defend passively. Even if the commander Dork had thought of countless solutions to reverse the situation, none of them worked. Those snow demons not only cast magic continuously, they also kept emitting a sharp whistling sound which made the rookie mages flustered so much that they couldn't even chant any incantations anymore. The snow demons were different from other magical beasts, and it was said that they carried the blood of the abyssal phantom. Each one of them was born with a female humanoid body that was perfectly voluptuous, making them extremely attractive. Their sharp whistles were not ordinary, either, as they came with mental spells that could easily disrupt the mage's spellcasting. The performance of the group of rookie mages was conceivable. Their consumption of mana was extremely large in the first place, and now their spellcasting was interrupted time and time again. The consumption of mana was almost exponentially increased. Soon, the group of rookie mages turned pale, and some mages even began throwing up because of the interruption. Seeing this situation, Lin Li knew that there was nothing much to do anymore. If that went on, the rookie mages might reach the other extreme again. It was just like how Alan calculated the use for every trace of mana carefully. That likewise wasn't a good habit. Lucy, get rid of that group of snow demons, Lin Li said indifferently. Lucy didn't even summon a humorous Wyrm, and simply took 2 steps forward and raised the skeleton staff in his hand. Immediately afterwards, the ice and snow in the area where the snow demons were standing instantly turned black, and countless skeletal arms extended from the black snow, dragging the snow demons that were close to the ground. This time, the group of snow demons were immediately frightened to the point of turning pale, and their expressions became twisted too. All the pleasant things before had been ruined. They wailed and shrieked while struggling, but they could not break free from the skeletal arms that seemed extremely fragile. They had no choice but to be dragged into the ground. In an instant, snow demons were all gone, while the black ground gradually retracted and shrank until it became a tiny black dot before vanishing completely. The snowfield also turned clean and pure again, but there were some messy stains left. Without them, they wouldn't have guessed what happened here. Seeing that the snow demons had disappeared, the rookie mages also finally recovered from shock. Dork walked towards Lin Li with a guilty expression and said, "President, I'm sorry, it was my misconduct that caused such a result." Although the team did not suffer any losses, the president actually had to stand by his subordinates during a battle against the snow demons. Clearly, it was their negligence. Dork had originally been confident that he and the others would be able to share the burden and relieve some of Lin Li's pressure, but now he was so embarrassed that his face turned red. Instead of reprimanding him, Lin Li merely calmly asked, "Do you know what your mistake was?" "Yes, President, we took too much for granted, thinking that we were so great just because we stepped into the legendary realm. However, in reality, we still have too much to learn," Dork said with some guilt. "Okay, take a 10-minute break, think about what went wrong earlier, and then move on." Lin Li waved his hand and told Dork to go back and make arrangements for the mages to rest. When Dork returned to the team and began to arrange for the mages to recover their mana as soon as possible, Lin Li looked at the place where the snow demons were just now and couldn't help but get a little lost in thought. He wasn't thinking about the alluring figures of the snow demons but rather wondering if he should catch some snow demons and bring them back for the mages to learn how to cast spells under interference. 10 minutes passed quickly, and the group of rookie mages had almost recovered their mana. Besides, while they were resting, they listened to Doric's summary of the previous problems and had more or less learned their lesson. The team set out again, and the rookie mages vaguely changed. Previously, they were indeed serious, but deep down they probably didn't think that the adventure would be too difficult. After all, they were all legendary mages, and would make quite a powerful team out there. Besides, with the previous lesson, they finally knew that the adventure was not a leisurely excursion, and that there was just too much for them to learn. In the ensuing process, the team encountered even more hindrance from magical beasts, and the mages finally behaved and reacted the way they should. Of course, for them, a group of rookies, to suddenly become elites who were experienced in battle was obviously not quite realistic. That could only happen after they continued partaking in battles and honing their skills. They might even have to pay the price in blood or lose their lives. All of a sudden, Norfaller, who had gone to scout ahead, flew back and came close to Lin Li. He reported, "Master, a team of humans has been spotted ahead, and it seems to be from the Gilded Kingdom." Lin Li was really surprised to hear that because the Gilded Kingdom claimed that this place was the ominous land, and it seemed that no one had come here to explore for thousands of years. So why did the Gilded Kingdom send their team to explore as soon as Lin Li and his team had just arrived? Of course, this island was within the territorial waters of the Gilded Kingdom, so there was nothing wrong with them sending a team to explore it. However, that would result in an inevitable conflict with the Gilded Kingdom again. Although he was surprised, Lin Li didn't take it too seriously and let the team move on. Anyway, if the team from the Gilded Kingdom knew what they were doing, a cooperation was possible too. However, if they decided to be foolish, Lin Li wouldn't mind adding on to the legend of the Gilded Kingdom. The team of the Tower of Dusk continued to move forward, and soon saw the team of the Gilded Kingdom in front of them. Without needing Lin Li's order, the mages quickly got into a formation under Doric's command vigilantly. Everyone knew that when exploring ruins, or during a quest for treasures, the most frightening existence was not those magical beasts or magic gears, but their own kind. As expected, when the Tower of Dusk's mages changed their formation, the team from the Gilded Kingdom also immediately reacted in a way that was obviously not very friendly. The mages and warriors broke away from the team and rushed towards the Tower of Dusk's team. The mages raised their staffs and chanted incantations, while the warriors drew their swords, all without the intention of talking to the Tower of Dusk's team, as they simply attacked immediately. The team from the Gilded Kingdom was the expedition led by the Illuminati Saint Edmund, Elder Zoomer, and High Priest Power. They arrived 2 days earlier than the Tower of Dusk's team, but due to the fact that they landed on another side of the ice island, they didn't see those warships of the Gilded Kingdom like when the star came over. After discovering that Lin Li's team had actually appeared on the ice island too, High Priest Power was really surprised and elated. He was surprised that Lin Li was able to find the island, knowing that the island would move and not remain stationary. Apart from the pirates who often frequented the surrounding waters, few people would be able to accurately deduce the location of the island. Meanwhile, he was glad that he could run into the enemy he wanted to get rid of in the future in such a place that was considered to be isolated from the world. Here, he could let go of all his worries, and would not have to consider the fact that the enemies were under the Supreme Council, nor worry about the relationship between the Gilded Kingdom and the Breezy Plains. Hence, High Priest Power had no intention of talking to Lin Li at all, as he simply ordered his team to attack. Although he also knew that Lin Li had sanctuary level strength and was more powerful than him, he was not the only sanctuary powerhouse there. In particular, there was also Saint Edmund, who was in charge of the Chaos Sanctuary of the Illuminati, and was at the peak of the sanctuary realm. Hence, he thought that it probably would be a piece of cake for him to deal with Lin Li. Seeing that High Priest had ordered his subordinates to attack the Tower of Dusk without hesitation, Elder Zoomer panicked and frantically said, "Wait, Power, you can't do this. Do you want us to start a war with the Tower of Dusk? Don't forget, Fulik is still the 4th arbitrator of the Supreme Council." However, after hearing Elder Zoomer's words, High Priest Power laughed unconcernedly and said, "Zoomer, don't worry, if we were elsewhere, I'd definitely take your advice. However, if we kill all of them here, who would know that we were the ones who did it? So what if the Supreme Council is in charge of them? Without evidence, they can't pin the blame on us. Power, you." When Elder Zoomer saw that High Priest Power refused to listen to him, he had no choice but to turn to Saint Edmund and say, "Saint Edmund, please stop Power quickly, or I'm afraid it will cause a war between us and the Supreme Council." However, in the face of Elder Zoomer's request, Saint Edmund remained silent, seemingly approving of Power's behavior. Indeed, from Evrion's perspective, The Gilded Kingdom's team was significantly stronger than the Tower of Dusk. Although Edmund did not bear a grudge against Lin Li, he thought that it would be the right choice to get rid of Lin Li before they got into a likely conflict in the future. Just when Elder Zoomer was persuading High Priest Power, those who were sent from the team of the Gilded Kingdom had already rushed to the spot with the best engagement distance and were ready to attack. The battle would begin at any time. However, looking at the people from the Gilded Kingdom who rushed over, Lin Li's expression remained indifferent, and he was completely unmoved. He simply raised one hand and pointed at the group of people. Next, the warriors sent by the Gilded Kingdom suddenly loomed over and fell onto the ground, while the movements of the mages of the Gilded Kingdom froze. Their incantations stopped, and the magic light on their staffs stopped flashing, as if time had been stopped in its tracks. Upon sight of such a scene, High Priest Power could not help but feel overwhelmed with hatred as he hollered at the subordinates beside him. "All of you must die." High Priest Power was prepared to go all out to get rid of his enemy, even if all his subordinates had to die. Perhaps there seemed to be no great feud between him and Lin Li to ordinary people, but as he was a sanctuary powerhouse, his pride mattered more to him than anything else. The fact that his son had gotten bullied was just like an insult to him. Hearing High Priest Power's orders, the mages and warriors in the group immediately got into formation to attack without hesitation at all. They then bulldozed towards the Tower of Dusk's team. Although they had all heard the argument between Elder Zoomer and High Priest Power, such an argument between big shots was meaningless to them. They just needed to know whom they should listen to. Although Elder Zoomer had a high status and was probably superior to High Priest Power, he wasn't their direct leader, after all. However, just as the team from the Gilded Kingdom was getting ready to launch a large-scale attack, Saint Edmund, who had been staying silent for a long time, suddenly interjected. "Stop." Edmund's voice was very soft, but everyone heard him very clearly. Upon hearing his words, they finally stopped. Although High Priest Power was their direct leader, Saint Edmund was a godlike existence in their hearts. Everyone knew that Saint Edmund was one of the few figures who were at the pinnacle of the Gilded Kingdom, and even King Bradler had to be respectful towards them. Saint Edmund's words were indeed beyond High Priest Power's expectations. "Didn't you already give me silent approval? Why are you stopping me now?" "Venerable Saint, these people from the Tower of Dusk have always been extremely rude, and they even destroyed the kingdom's 5th fleet. They clearly have no intention of being at peace with us," High Priest Power said anxiously. In the beginning, he was still hoping that Saint Edmund would intervene to help him take revenge. After all, he knew very well that he was not Lin Li's match yet. However, he did not expect Edmund to intervene and stop him right when they were about to start a battle. Edmund frowned slightly, obviously somewhat dissatisfied with High Priest Power's attitude. He then said in a deep voice, "Power, I hope you remember what you are here for. Don't forget the important task at hand for your own selfish reasons." Edmund, of course, did not stop High Priest Power because he could not bear to go hard against the Tower of Dusk. In fact, if the members of the Tower of Dusk's team were all wastrels, he wouldn't mind letting High Priest Power abuse his authority and annihilate them. However, Edmund's judgment was far better than High Priest Power's. He could already tell from Lin Li's strike alone that Lin Li had incredible strength. In this case, if they still wanted to fight a battle, it would probably end up in a loss-loss scenario. In that case, how could they carry on with the mission? The team of the Tower of Dusk had already gotten ready to fight, but after Edmund stopped High Priest Power, Lin Li raised his hand to beckon the mages to temporarily stop preparing for battle. In fact, Lin Li's thoughts and concerns were somewhat similar to Saint Edmund's. If the other party was just the High Priest Power and those nobodies, he would simply order his subordinates to attack without even waiting for High Priest Power to make any moves. Even if Elder Zoomer joined in, Lin Li would not be too worried. After all, he still had powerful weapons, like the debris of the stars. Hence, he really was not afraid of Zoomer and Power ganging up against him. However, apart from Zoomer and Power, there was another mysterious man in a black robe, whom he had to face, thus leaving Lin Li with no choice but to consider the consequences of starting a battle. Lin Li was not arrogant enough to think that he could single-handedly fight 3 sanctuary powerhouses, especially since making sure that none of them escaped was definitely tough. Hence, the two parties very tacitly agreed to temporarily put aside their hostility and showed some intention to negotiate. Saint Edmund of the Gilded Kingdom brought Elder Zoomer and High Priest Power away from the team and went towards the Tower of Dusk's team, while Lin Li brought Connorus and the 2 undead servants toward the Gilded Kingdom's side. No matter what, the 2 sides did not break into battle in the end, so Elder Zoomer was secretly relieved. He introduced to Lin Li, "President Flick, let me introduce you. This is Saint Edmund of the Chaos Sanctuary of the Illuminati." "Oh, hello, Saint Edmund. Lin Li didn't expect to meet a big shot of the Illuminati here. The four saints of the Illuminati, who were second only to the Holy Lord of the Illuminati, could be said to be above all others among the Illuminati. Edmund assented with a nod, but did not say anything to Lin Li, and instead seemed to be putting on an arrogant attitude. It was no wonder that he'd behave that way, since he had stepped into the sanctuary realm years ago, and was even older than the three arbitrators of the Supreme Council. How could he be friendly to a young man like Lin Li? Lin Li had seen plenty of people who liked putting on airs just because they were old. Hence, he didn't care about Edmund's attitude, but rather turned to Elder Zoomer and asked, "Elder Zoomer, I didn't expect us to meet here. What are you guys planning to do?" Although Elder Zoomer did not want a conflict to break out between the two parties, it didn't mean that he liked Lin Li, so he naturally wouldn't reveal the real situation that they were in to the latter. Hearing Lin Li's question, he glanced at the team from the Tower of Dusk behind Lin Li with a smile, and said, "We were entrusted by His Majesty to investigate the curse put on this island. Flick, I believe that you should know about the legend of this place, so I won't say anything more." President Flick, what did you come all the way here and create a ruckus for instead of staying on Four Seasons Island? Lin Li did not believe that they were there for an investigation of the curse that Elder Zoomer mentioned. The legend of the curse had been circulating for many years, and if the Gilded Kingdom had wanted to investigate, they would have done so long ago. However, since they were not willing to disclose the real reason, Lin Li could not force them either. Hence, Lin Li said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. We just wanted to cruise around the sea and enjoy the scenery, but we did not expect to deviate from the course and end up here." Lin Li was obviously lying, and Elder Zoomer even wanted to laugh. It was an excuse that was as weak and ridiculous as a peeping Tom saying that he had gotten lost and entered the ladies' room by mistake. Lin Li was a sanctuary powerhouse, and even if he had no experience with sailing, it was impossible for him to get lost at sea. Besides, Lin Li had the nautical information that he had extorted out of the Gilded Kingdom. President Flick, you're really lucky. Those who have been wanting to find this island for years haven't been able to, but you managed to reach this place after getting lost, Elder Zoomer said sarcastically. He was actually just trying to say that Lin Li's lie and excuse were too lousy. However, Lin Li looked at the surrounding scenery as if he didn't understand at all, and said, "Indeed, I'm very lucky. I didn't expect to be able to see such a mesmerizing scenery upon reaching a random island." Elder Zoomer, if there's nothing that you have to do, why don't you come and sit at my place? I've brought a special wine from the breezy plains, so we can sip the wine while enjoying this beautiful scenery. Seeing that Lin Li was becoming more and more absurd, Elder Zoomer lost patience, and hurriedly stopped Lin Li from continuing. "Okay, President Flick, let's talk openly and honestly. Saying such things is just a waste of everyone's time." "Sure, Elder Zoomer, please set an example," Lin Li immediately retorted. Elder Zoomer secretly cursed Lin Li in his head for being cunning before turning his head to look at Saint Edmund. Seeing that Edmund didn't object, he then said to Lin Li, "All right, I will be direct then. The goal of our exploration this time is to go to the center of this island." "Where are you planning to go, President Flick?" "What a coincidence. It just so happens that we are going to the center of the island too," Lin Li said, revealing his goal. However, he did not state the true agenda of the exploration, and instead waited for Elder Zoomer to continue speaking lest he suffered a loss. Just when Elder Zoomer was about to open his mouth again, Edmund coughed lightly and said, "Stop playing these word games. In order to avoid unnecessary conflict, I might as well tell you the purpose of our exploration this time. I believe that you should have already heard and understood something about the legend of this island. This island is known as a cursed island. Thousands of years ago, there was a tragedy where countless adventurers died, and a fleet of the Gilded Kingdom was involved too. However, some things happened later, and I reckon no outsiders know about it." "Oh, may I hear the details?" Lin Li had already heard of the legend that Edmund mentioned from Jeremiah. However, the fact that Edmund mentioned that the legend was not completely known to outsiders really piqued his interest. Perhaps even in the Gilded Kingdom today, very few know that this so-called cursed island is also the origin of the Illuminati. The first Holy Lord, who single-handedly created the Illuminati, was born on this very island. Edmund's words made everyone feel astonished. There was probably no one who knew that the island, which was called the Ominous Land by the Gilded Kingdom, was actually the birthplace of the first Holy Lord of the Illuminati. Logically speaking, as the birthplace of the first Holy Lord of the Illuminati, this island should be a holy place in the eyes of the Illuminati and even the Gilded Kingdom. However, the contrast between that and reality was just too great, and the island had become the so-called Ominous Land, which housed all the criminals who had been exiled and banished there, almost making this location a filthy place. "You mean this place that is now the Ominous Land was the holy land of your Illuminati?" Although Lin Li knew that he was a sanctuary powerhouse and wouldn't care about the holy land, he was still in disbelief. Edmund was not angry at Lin Li's questions. If it were someone else who dared to question him, he might have already taught the other party a lesson. However, he could tell from Lin Li's minor attack just now that the latter had the right to speak to him like an equal. Hence, in the face of Lin Li's bombardment of questions, Edmund simply shook his head without explaining. When the first Holy Lord of the Illuminati Aquilo was born, this island was still only an extremely ordinary island, while Aquilo was just an ordinary fisherman on the island. However, according to the holy records, a sudden change occurred on the island one night when Saint Aquilo was just 17 years old. All of a sudden, there was a change, and it was obviously late at night, but the island was engulfed by endless light that was maintained for dozens of days. During the change, Holy Lord Aquilo received the king's favor, and he obtained godlike power. Lin Li had learned about the Gilded Kingdom and the Illuminati from all perspectives ever since he came into contact with them. In particular, he put in a lot of effort into finding out about the Illuminati, which could almost compete with the Supreme Council. Although he did not know much about the first Holy Lord of the Illuminati Aquilo whom Edmund mentioned, he still knew a thing or two about the Illuminatist doctrinal beliefs. The Illuminati believed in the ancient god Zogar, and claimed that Zogar was the one who had created the world, as well as the ancient Wyrms and Titans, which had once dominated Anral for countless years. In their teachings, it was mentioned that the true God awakened in chaos and created the first light of the world for there to be light. They believed that light was the beginning of the world, and therefore the king Edmund mentioned was Zogar, the ancient deity of the Illuminati. The Illuminatist beliefs seemed to be somewhat similar to those of the Brilliant Shrine, but they were actually completely different. The Brilliant Shrine believed in the holy light that could purify all evilness and filth in the world, or rather, it could be said that their faith was purely a holy law. On the other hand, the Illuminati believed in the light of creation, the light that could encompass everything in the world, which they believed to carry Zogar's willpower. Holy Lord Aquilo obtained the inheritance of the God King of Light and became the Son of Light in the midst of day. So he created the Illuminati and spread the teachings of light to the world. In the following decades, the faith was spread to every island inhabited by humans, and even the royal family of the Gilded Kingdom became devotees. At that time, this island became the holy land of the Illuminati. Countless devotees would travel to by boat for a pilgrimage, Edmund said, giving a brief introduction of the origin of the Illuminati. Although he seemed calm, his tone of voice contained a sense of pride and longing for that era. However, Lin Li was unfazed. As a mage, he was basically meant to be faithless, and naturally would not have any redundant feelings. Of course, from Edmund's story, he could also imagine how the island thrived to become the Holy Land. However, the difference between what the island used to be and now was huge, and Lin Li had thus developed a greater interest in what happened to the island. He asked, how did this island become a place of exile and end up in such a state? Knowing that it was not time to reminisce and bask in nostalgia, Edmund put away his thoughts and said in a slightly more somber voice, everything changed when a man in a black robe suddenly came to this island. Shortly after he did, an earth-shattering battle broke out, after which the will of the God King of Light whom we worship was suppressed. Man in a black robe. Lin Li was shocked, and he immediately thought of the Immortal King. Didn't I end up finding this desolate island because I was in pursuit of the Immortal King's traces? However, Lin Li's face remained unchanged because he didn't want to reveal the information about the Immortal King. Hence, he said in a skeptical tone with some apprehension, are you saying that a man in a black robe suppressed the will of the God King of Light that you believe in? This seems a bit unlikely, right? Since the God King of Light is the God of creation, his will must be extremely powerful. So how can it be suppressed by a human? Besides, since this is the sacred land of the Illuminati, would you allow the God of your faith to be so offended? Hearing Lin Li's words, the expression on Saint Edmund's face finally changed slightly. However, it was a look of grief and not anger. Of course we didn't just stand by and watch. It's just that black-robed man was too powerful. He was so powerful that we suspect that he wasn't human at all. According to the sacred scriptures, that battle almost destroyed the sacred land, and the foundation of the Illuminati was nearly uprooted. The founding saint, Aquilo, also unfortunately fell in that battle. Besides, it was only because he was affected by the battle between the two parties. After saying that, everyone in the surroundings couldn't help but inhale sharply. The people of the Illuminati knew that the founding saint, Lord Aquilo, was a mythical existence according to the sacred scriptures. Legend had it that his strength was close to the gods back then, and he could be considered to have reached the point where he was able to fight against the gods. However, such a powerful existence actually fell because of the aftershocks of a battle. How powerful was the battle then? As for the people on Lin Li's side, although no one had read the Illuminatist scriptures, they could imagine how powerful that person who could create the formidable Illuminati was. After all, It was not a peaceful era back then. There were high elves on the mainland and the powerful sea clan in the depths of the ocean. Hence, without sufficient power and strength, it was definitely impossible to create the Illuminati. At this moment, Lin Li was more and more inclined to think that the black-robed man was the Immortal King. The Immortal King was a powerful figure that could even annihilate the Dragon of Destruction. Hence, it might not really be much of an exaggeration to say that he could suppress the will of the ancient deities Agar. So, what is your purpose in coming here? Although he had heard about the Illuminati, Lin Li did not forget about the important thing he had to do. Hence, he directly asked for the reason that Edmund and the rest of the group were there. We're here just for the follow-up plan and to conduct some exploration in advance. In the near future, we will mobilize all of our forces to come here and bring back the sacred relics that the Illuminati had lost here back then. Edmund finally revealed his agenda. He then turned to Lin Li and said, President Flick, shouldn't you also tell us what your intention behind the visit is? The secret story of the Illuminati that Edmund mentioned took place at least thousands of years ago. But why did he choose to come to take the so-called holy relic only now after such a long period of time? Edmund seemed to be deliberately ignoring that point, but Lin Li did not probe further despite being filled with doubts. Lin Li was well aware that it was simply impossible to expect Edmund to tell him the truth completely. If he dwelt too much on that issue, the temporary peace between the two parties would have to be broken. Lin Li wasn't there to start a war with the Illuminati, but to search for information left behind by the Immortal King. Hence, he was naturally unwilling to cause any delay in his important matters because of that. Hearing Edmund's inquiry, Lin Li smiled and said without blinking, actually, the reason I came to this island is simple. When I was on the mainland, I explored some ruins from the Dark Age and chanced upon some information about this island in the tomb of a sanctuary powerhouse of the Dark Age. It said that sanctuary powerhouse said that in the center of this island, there is an extremely powerful magical weapon. I couldn't help it. The Tower of Dusk has only been established a few years ago, and the foundation is still weak, so I took the opportunity to come here during the Gilded Kingdom's founding celebration. One of them claimed to be there to recover the sacred relics, and one said he was there to find a powerful magical weapon. In the opinion of the public, there was definitely a conflict of interests, because what if the holy relics and the magical weapon were the same thing? Would they go to war immediately? Even if the two were not the same thing, this place used to be the sacred land of the Illuminati, so it was reasonable that any powerful magical weapon that could be found there used to belong to the Illuminati. In that case, how could the Illuminati watch others take their own things? However, after hearing Lin Li's statement, Edmund did not seem to mind it much, and instead said, after all, this island used to be the sacred land of the Illuminati. Although thousands of years have passed, we still have a collection of the information about the situation on the island. Since you're also heading to the center of the island, why don't we put aside our past conflicts for the time being and head there together, President Flick? After hearing Saint Edmund's words, everyone present, be it the people from the Tower of Dusk or the Gilded Kingdom, and the Illuminati, was astonished. It was akin to leading a burglar around the house instead of driving him away. In particular, High Priest Power immediately panicked and turned around to say something to Edmund. However, before he could do so, Edmund raised his hand to make a gesture, causing Power to drop the idea. Although Power was the High Priest of the kingdom and had a very high status in the Gilded Kingdom was a devotee of the Illuminati. Hence, how could he, the High Priest of the kingdom, compare to the Illuminati saint? Although he could ignore Elder Zoomer's words, he definitely didn't dare to adopt such an attitude when facing Saint Edmund. Hence, seeing Edmund's gesture, High Priest Power immediately stopped himself from raising an objection. He had no choice but to turn around and glower at his enemy, Lin Li. However, compared to others, Lin Li wasn't quite surprised, as he was still smiling calmly. He was well aware that Edmund did not have any good intentions, and the reason he asked him to come along was very likely because he wanted Lin Li to be his cannon fodder. With this, Lin Li could also speculate that the journey would probably be dangerous, and Edmund was not confident that he could deal with the trouble alone. However, Lin Li did not take it to heart. Anyway, even without Edmund and the others, they would still go to the center of the island to explore all the same. Now that Edmund's team had joined, it was uncertain who would be the cannon fodder. With that thought in mind, Lin Li did not hesitate much at all and nodded. Sure, since you have extended this invitation to me, Saint Edmund, there is nothing else I have to hesitate about. I hope that we can get along well on the way from now on. Jeet the L test vels on no, v, Elben, c, With that, the two teams reached a verbal agreement to get along peacefully for the time being. After taking a short break, they set out again to the center of the island. After passing through undulating frozen mountains, they were greeted with a boundless snowfield, where the temperature was freezing. There were very few creatures in Anral that could survive in such an environment. At the same time, there was also a violent ice elemental power shrouding this snowfield and forming a terrifying ice storm. There was no elemental power of other elements. According to the judgment of several sanctuary powerhouses, perhaps only those who were in the legendary level and above could survive in such an environment. Those below the legendary level would probably be frozen as soon as they stepped into it. Faced with such a situation, the two teams unanimously made the same decision to let those who were too weak to withstand the conditions head back first. After everything was arranged, the two teams, composed entirely of legendary powerhouses, stepped into the ice field and continued to travel towards the center of the island. However, soon after the two teams entered the snowfield, they were attacked by a group of ice elemental lifeforms. This hellish place where the majority of creatures couldn't survive was a haven for ice elemental lifeforms, as they did not have any natural enemies there, and there was a constant stream of ice elemental power that was continuously infused into their bodies. After long years of growth, the ice elemental lifeforms each had either legendary level or near legendary level strength. Besides, they would appear in clusters of hundreds or even thousands. In the snowfield, where they had an absolute advantage, they could exert more power. If it was a team with members that were of the same level as the ice elemental lifeforms, they might really face a tragic end. However, the two teams now had 4 sanctuary powerhouses, which were far stronger than legendary level existences. On the Gilded Kingdom's side, High Priest Power seemed to be venting his discontentment and anger as he destroyed a large number of ice elemental lifeforms that swarmed towards him with a single strike. High Priest Power was a real sanctuary powerhouse who could easily destroy those legendary level ice elemental lifeforms. Hence, the legendary powerhouses in the team did not even have the chance to attack and were just acting as spectators. However, the battle on the side of the Tower of Dusk was much more eventful. With Lin Li's strength, destroying those ice elemental lifeforms was much easier for him than for High Priest Power. After all, there was a clear difference in strength between the two of them. However, Lin Li did not attack, and even Connorus and the others didn't. The ones who fought with those ice elemental lifeforms were the rookie mages of the Tower of Dusk. Although they had reached the legendary realm, they might not be able to compare with those ice elemental lifeforms in terms of strength. Fortunately, they had the magic net array that could allow them to survive under the waves of attacks of the ice elemental lifeforms. Although finding the traces of the Immortal King was the most important thing at the moment for Lin Li, he wasn't willing to give up what he felt was an excellent opportunity to hone the skills of the rookie mages. Otherwise, he would have just let them go back. However, the speed of the Tower of Dusk team naturally slowed down greatly, leaving the Gilded Kingdom's team with no choice but to stop and wait for them. We actually have to bring this bunch of garbage with us here. I really don't know what's on his mind. High Priest Power disliked Lin Li greatly, and thus couldn't help but sneer again when he saw that they were being slowed down by Lin Li's team again. However, unlike High Priest Power, Saint Edmund and Elder Zoomer remained silent. Instead, they seemed to be watching the battle that the Tower of Dusk was in. Is this the magic net array created by Garesco? I didn't expect that this magic array would really change the combat power of the mages so drastically, Elder Zoomer remarked in amazement while watching with great enthusiasm. It was as if he was trying to memorize the magic array with his eyes. Unfortunately, the magic net array was not an ordinary formation used in the military. The formation was just one aspect, and the true core was not something that could be learned with the naked eye. Hearing Elder Zoomer's words, High Priest Power's expression suddenly changed, and he no longer looked as furious. Instead, he said in a somber tone of voice, "If we can get this magic array from the Tower of Dusk, it will definitely be a great help in improving the strength of the Gilded Kingdom and the Illuminati." Previously, when he first came into contact with the Tower of Dusk's team, High Priest Power wanted to rely on the strength of his side to wipe out the Tower of Dusk's team. However, he was later stopped by Saint Edmund. At that time, Saint Edmund told him not to affect the operation because of his selfish reasons. Hence, at this moment, High Priest Power stopped speaking from his personal perspective, and instead looked like he was all out for the interests of the kingdom for the Illuminati. Of course, what he said was indeed true and faultless. There were numerous mages in the Gilded Kingdom and the Illuminati. If they could master the magic net array, their strength would definitely be improved greatly. However, Edmund was still clear-headed after all. He shook his head slightly and said, "Cut it out. Our goal now is to complete the task of exploration. Leave those things for later." Edmund naturally also knew the benefits of the magic net array, but it was obviously not the time to talk about it now. He was also planning to let the team of the Tower of Dusk be the cannon fodder. If they showed any intention to covet the Tower of Dusk's magic net array, they would probably fall out with them. Hearing these words, High Priest Power stopped persuading them despite his reluctance. However, he was not entirely disappointed, because Saint Edmund mentioned talking about those issues at a later time, not dropping it entirely. As long as Saint Edmund was willing to deal with the Tower of Dusk, it would be a piece of cake to get rid of them. After a while, the Tower of Dusk's team finally ended the battle. Although there were no casualties among the mages, they were clearly exhausted. However, before High Priest Power could come up with any ideas, the mages of the Tower of Dusk had already each taken out a potion and drunk it. Immediately afterwards, the mages' mana and mental strength recovered quickly. This time, the people of the Gilded Kingdom were shocked again. Although they had also prepared a lot of high-level potions for the exploration this time, they were still astonished after seeing the magical effect of the potions. It wasn't that they had never seen potions with such miraculous effects before, but rather that they knew that those that could produce such effects were usually master-level potions. Master-level potions were definitely rare and highly valued in all parts of the world. However, the mages of the Tower of Dusk actually downed them like water. Seeing such a scene, the people on the side of Gilded Kingdom were green with envy, wishing they could snatch those empty potion bottles and see if they could accumulate the residue into a bottle of potion. Of course, Saint Edmund and the other two sanctuary powerhouses had better composure, though they were still secretly amazed by the Tower of Dusk's lavish habits. Potions with instant mana recovery effects were generally used to save lives, and were often used as a trump card that would be pulled only during the most critical juncture. The mages of the Tower of Dusk could obviously recover well after some rest, and yet they each wasted such a precious potion for the sake of restoring themselves to the best state. Such wastrels. When the team of the Tower of Dusk finished cleaning up the battlefield, the people of the Gilded Kingdom began seeing them as Nuva riches. The people of the Gilded Kingdom couldn't understand it at all. Was there a need to use such expensive potions for such a trivial battle? However, Lin Li was very satisfied with the battle just now. The rookie mages were very talented in the first place, and had excellent theoretical knowledge too. After several true battles, they soon got into battle mode. Although their performance had yet to be comparable to that of the mages Lin Li had brought to the Sky Castle, he believed that they would definitely become the elites of the Tower of Dusk after experiencing a few more battles and honing their skills. In the process of traveling towards the center of this ominous island, the two teams, from the Gilded Kingdom and the Tower of Dusk, respectively, encountered several more attacks from the ice elemental lifeforms. The closer they got to the center of the ice island, the more powerful the ice elemental lifeforms became. Besides, there were many that were near the sanctuary realm. The team of the Gilded Kingdom basically dealt with them, and finished the battle quickly without much painstaking efforts, especially since they had the help of the sanctuary powerhouse, High Priest Power. On the other side, the Tower of Dusk's team often caused a long delay in the battle because of Lin Li's plan for honing their skills. Afterwards, the mages of the Tower of Dusk clearly could have ended the battle sooner, but Lin Li instructed them to switch to a new combat method, causing the battle's duration to be prolonged again. The members of the Gilded Kingdom were naturally quite displeased with the Tower of Dusk's procrastination, especially High Priest Power, who disliked the people of the Tower of Dusk in the first place. However, regardless of their interventions or mockery, Lin Li remained unfazed and continued doing what he wanted to. Facing the interventions of the Gilded Kingdom's team, Lin Li's response was simple. While watching his subordinates fight, he nonchalantly answered, "If you're in a rush, you don't have to wait for us. It doesn't matter. We can find our way there ourselves." Lin Li obviously understood what the people of the Gilded Kingdom were planning to do. They undoubtedly wanted to make the Tower of Dusk's team cannon fodder. In particular, in the current situation, the members of the Gilded Kingdom knew more about this ice island as compared to them. Hence, the Gilded Kingdom obviously had such plans. However, Lin Li clearly had the same idea too. Upon receiving that response from Lin Li, High Priest Power almost vomited blood in exasperation. However, there was no way for him to flare up, because Saint Edmund had already told him to simmer down in advance. In a moment of helplessness, the members of the Gilded Kingdom had no choice but to end the battle and wait for the Tower of Dusk's team. Of course, High Priest Power had also tried to help the Tower of Dusk deal with the enemies. Although it seemed to be holding themselves cheap by helping their rival get rid of the enemy, the thought of ruining Lin Li's plan to train his subordinates balanced it out. However, as soon as High Priest showed the slightest intention of striking, Lin Li would instantly release a terrifying mana wave. Clearly, Lin Li would never allow anyone to ruin his plan. Once High Priest Power attacked, he would face retaliation by Thunderbolt. In the end, Saint Edmund of the Gilded Kingdom stopped High Priest Power in time, preventing the conflict between them from breaking out in advance. Hence, the team from the Gilded Kingdom had no choice but to end their battle and wait for the Tower of Dusk to do the same. Just like that, the two teams traveled for nearly a day with breaks in between, and finally entered the central area of the ice island. After they did, the ice elemental lifeforms also disappeared, and did not attack them. The Tower of Dusk's plan to train their subordinates naturally had to be put on hold. The Tower of Dusk did not waste any more time, and the two teams naturally enjoyed a boost in their marching speed. It was as if they could reach their destination in the next moment. However, before Saint Edmund could rejoice, a loud ring resounded through the clouds, followed by a terrifying aura that shrouded the group. Immediately afterwards, they saw in the air a massive white bird-shaped magical beast, rushing towards the two teams on the ground. Damn, it's the Ice Phoenix. How did this thing appear here? High Priest Power couldn't help but exclaim in shock. It was said that the power of the phoenixes was far greater than that of the ancient Wyrms in the prehistoric times. However, the very fact that the phoenixes were extremely rare meant that they could not participate in the battle for supremacy between the ancient Wyrms and the Titans in Anral. However, in the war between the ancient Wyrms and the Titans, the phoenixes had always been extraordinary. Hence, neither the ancient Wyrms nor the Titans wanted to push the phoenixes to their opponent. Clearly, although the Phoenix clan was small in number, the ancient Wyrms and the Titans were wary of their strength. The Ice Phoenixes were considered the aliens of the phoenixes. Even in the prehistoric times, there were very few of them due to the fact that the phoenixes basically had fire as the origin of power, unlike the ancient Wyrms, that had a variety of origins of power. As their name implied, the Ice Phoenixes had the laws of ice as their origin power. Compared to the phoenixes that ordinary people knew, they were at the other extreme of power. The Ice Phoenix that appeared in front of the two teams today had power that was at the peak of the Sanctuary realm. In fact, its power even contained some divine aura, and it was probably near the realm of the gods. Shrouded in white and crystalline feathers, the Ice Phoenix had wings that were hundreds of meters long, and 9 long tails trailing behind it. It was surrounded by clouds that had condensed into ice, giving it a majestic vibe. Even Saint Edmund of the Gilded Kingdom had no idea if the Ice Phoenix was the one that had caused the changes in the Ice Island, or that the Ice Island had caused the Ice Phoenix to come over. However, the several sanctuary powerhouses knew that the Ice Phoenix definitely wouldn't come just to chat with them. The Ice Phoenix was definitely the strongest opponent that the two teams had met so far. Once the Ice Phoenix issued a threat, the members of the two teams except for the sanctuary powerhouses would probably face a massive disaster. Facing an opponent at the peak of the sanctuary realm, there was no need for anyone to be cannon fodder. Those below the sanctuary realm would probably die as soon as they came into contact with the aftershocks. Hence, the sanctuary powerhouses broke free from their respective teams and flew into the air almost unanimously. Seeing that the several sanctuary powerhouses were coming forth, the Ice Phoenix almost ignored them and simply spread its wings while vibrating. A terrifying ice storm swept towards the sanctuary powerhouses. In the ice storm, countless large ice crystals flew rapidly. Even a mountain range would probably be blasted into dust by the impact. As soon as they saw this situation, the several sanctuary powerhouses dared not slow down in the slightest, and each of them immediately cast their strongest defensive magic spells. Even peak legendary powerhouses could not resist and endure for a second in the storm. Although it was said that all under the sanctuary realm were insignificant ants, neither Lin Li, Saint Edmund, nor the others were willing to see the talents they nurtured die. Saint Edmund pointed his scepter forward, and a huge shield, that was composed of a dull light, was immediately erected in front of him out of thin air. Elder Zoomer and High Priest Power launched their respective domain worlds, which were definitely the most powerful defensive means of all sanctuary powerhouses. Both Elder Zoomer and High Priest Power had water element as their base, hence, the domain worlds that they created were also ocean worlds. However, it could be seen that Elder Zoomer's was obviously stronger than that of High Priest Power. Elder Zoomer's ocean world was already based on the elemental laws of water, which resulted in many other laws, thus creating an ocean world full of vitality. High Priest Power's ocean world seemed much duller, and apart from the vast sea, all the islands were still like floating icebergs. At this moment, Lin Li had also swung out the Helios scepter, but he did not unfold his domain world. Instead, he erected a crystal-like ice shield in front of himself. Not only did it shield him, but also Connorus and the two undead servants. Seeing that Lin Li did not cast a domain world, and instead cast a magic shield, High Priest Power was full of disdain. Although High Priest Power had suffered an unjust loss during their brief battle, deep down, he did not think that Lin Li would be much more powerful than him. Now that Lin Li had mimicked Saint Edmund, and cast only a magic shield to defend against the terrifying attack of the Ice Phoenix. Power felt that Lin Li was going to make a fool out of himself. When Elder Zoomer saw Lin Li's move, he was just as shocked, and he secretly criticized Lin Li for being too arrogant. Although his knowledge of Lin Li's strength was far greater than that of High Priest Power, he likewise did not think that Lin Li's strength could be compared to that of Saint Edmund. High Priest Power hoped that Lin Li would suffer a big loss or even get killed by the Ice Phoenix, but Elder Zoomer had even more considerations. Although he also hoped for a chance to get rid of the young president of the Tower of Dusk, he did not think that now was a good time. The strength of the Ice Phoenix had already reached the peak of the Sanctuary Realm, and was even vaguely near the realm of the gods. If they lost a Sanctuary powerhouse, they would probably pay a huge price even if they obtained victory in the end. However, it was too late to say anything, and the Ice Phoenix wouldn't give them any time to discuss anything. The terrifying ice storm swept over in the blink of an eye, and the several sanctuary powerhouses overlapped their magic defenses. In an instant, it was as if the sky was snowing as countless ice crystals splattered everywhere. High Priest Power was waiting to see Lin Li make a fool out of himself, but he didn't expect to be the first to be doomed. Under the ferocious impact of the ice storm, the domain world he created was like a cracked eggshell as countless spatial rifts appeared in it. Immediately afterwards, that extreme chilliness in the ice storm seeped through the spatial cracks, causing the ocean world to turn into an icy cold snowfield. Even the vast ocean had frozen. The domain worlds created by sanctuary powerhouses had completely integrated their comprehension and mastery of the world laws. Hence, they had absolute control over their own domain worlds. However, under the invasion of the extreme chilliness, High Priest Power soon discovered to his horror that his control over the domain world was being rapidly weakened. It was as if his will was about to be extracted from the domain world. In the nick of time, a grayish glow suddenly enveloped High Priest Power's domain world, blocking the further invasion of the extreme chilliness. High Priest Power knew that Edmund was helping him, hence, he dared not get distracted at all. Taking this chance, he hurriedly repaired his domain world. In comparison to High Priest Power, Elder Zoomer was a high-level sanctuary powerhouse. After all, his domain world had already reached a nearly perfect level. Under the influence of the ice storm, Elder Zoomer's domain world remained still like a reef in the sea despite the waves that were crashing against it. Saint Edmund was considered to be the most relaxed one. The large dim shield in front of him was like a huge furnace that burnt and melted the incoming ice storm before it even touched the shield. Of course, it was not that the Ice Phoenix was incompetent, but rather that the ice storm was only a probing attack. It wasn't surprising at all that Saint Edmund, who was close to the peak of the sanctuary realm, could easily block such an attack. It was also because of this that Edmund could shelve out some energy to take care of High Priest Power, who was the weakest among the three sanctuary powerhouses. At the same time, Saint Edmund also looked over at Lin Li, only to secretly be shocked. Edmund wasn't surprised that Lin Li managed to resist the Ice Phoenix ice storm with a seemingly ordinary ice shield. After all, the previous conflict had already allowed him to see that Lin Li's strength was indeed extraordinary. However, it now seemed that Lin Li's strength was still a little beyond his expectations. Contrary to High Priest Power's hopes, the ice shield that Lin Li cast was not instantly washed away, collapsing in the ice storm. The ice shield instead seemed like a snowball that constantly attracted ice crystals from the ice storm, making the ice shield bigger and bigger. Edmund couldn't help but be shocked. After all, it was not a real snowball, as it was completely a battle between laws. Could it be that young sanctuary powerhouse can already devour and assimilate the origin laws of the Ice Phoenix? Of course, Edmund would not know that Lin Li had the debris of the stars, polar snow, that contained pure water elemental laws. His understanding and mastery of water elemental laws was far from that of an ordinary sanctuary powerhouse of the same level. In fact, if Lin Li had concentrated on one or two basic elemental laws, his strength would probably have already approached, or even reached the peak of the sanctuary realm. However, if that had been the case, Lin Li's strength would certainly not have been nearly invincible, compared to others of the same level as it was now. He would at best be a sanctuary powerhouse, who was stronger than average. Of course, Lin Li was not devouring and assimilating the original laws of the Ice Phoenix. He only used his mastery of the elemental laws of water to guide the Ice Phoenix's origin laws to a certain extent. It was just like going with the flow, and not clashing head-on with the power of the Ice Phoenix. Hence, the pressure naturally decreased. However, at this moment, even a powerhouse like Saint Edmund could not be too distracted when facing the powerful Ice Phoenix. After looking away from Lin Li, Edmund pointed his scepter forward, and countless huge thunderbolts sprang up in the air behind him, blasting towards the Ice Phoenix one by one. The thunderbolts looked dull at first glance, but they were emitting a menacing and sinister aura. Facing the ice storm of the Ice Phoenix, those thunderbolts were like fish in water as they were almost unhindered by the ice storm. They then blasted into the body of the Ice Phoenix one after another. The deafening roars filled the air and caused it to tremble vigorously, while the Ice Phoenix let out a furious chirp upon getting attacked. Next, the Ice Phoenix flapped its wings and emitted an extreme chilliness. Even the space was frozen, and the thunderbolts seemed to have suddenly become motionless in the air. In the blink of an eye, they were shrouded in frost and fell downwards. As the Ice Phoenix managed to freeze even thunderbolts, it was no wonder that it was claimed to be able to freeze everything in the world. Although Lin Li hid behind the ice shield, he could see the changes on the battlefield very clearly. Although the elemental laws of water he had mastered through the debris of the stars, polar snow, were higher than the ice origin laws of the Ice Phoenix, he also had to admit that he could not maximize the operation of the laws of ice like the Ice Phoenix could. However, Saint Edmund's attack was not entirely ineffective, as it at least managed to make the Ice Phoenix stop the ice storm, so they would not have to constantly be suppressed. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Elder Zoomer and High Priest Power also immediately began to counterattack against the Ice Phoenix. High Priest Power had just resisted the ice storm of the Ice Phoenix with the help of Saint Edmund, which would not be a big deal under normal circumstances. However, he wanted to see Lin Li make a fool out of himself this time, and he didn't expect to end up in such a disheveled state. He was ashamed and furious. Hence, he went all out without any restraint. As High Priest Power cast a spell, a dark cloud quickly covered the sky above the battlefield, followed by a heavy downpour. It was as if the ocean had been turned upside down in the sky. It was not an ordinary rainstorm, as each drop of rain was condensed with the elemental laws of water, being even heavier than a mountain peak, and probably could blast the ground open and form a bottomless pit. If such a rainstorm were to fall on an island, the island would probably be wiped out completely in the blink of an eye. At the same time, Elder Zoomer had also begun maximizing his strength and condensing huge waves in the sky that were constantly crashing into the Ice Phoenix. Each wave seemed to contain a huge force and a momentum that could destroy all obstacles, thus stirring up the space in the battlefield. However, in the face of the attacks of the three sanctuary powerhouses, the Ice Phoenix did not show the slightest hint of panic. It flapped its wings twice and shook off the ice-condensed feathers, which started darting towards the crowd like a million arrows. Each of the frosted feathers was flickering with ancient magic runes, emitting the extremely cold aura of the primordial world. It was as if one's soul would be frozen as soon as they saw it. Immediately afterwards, the massive body of the Ice Phoenix also leapt towards Saint Edmund together with the frosted feathers. Clearly, the Ice Phoenix had sensed that Saint Edmund was the strongest among the opponents. As long as it could get rid of him, it wouldn't have to worry about the others. Seeing that the Ice Phoenix was rushing towards him, Edmund almost panicked, but while he retreated, he pointed the scepter in his hand forward, and dim rays of light appeared in the sky with some ancient god statues. They were all hideous, and their large bodies were not even inferior to the Ice Phoenix, each holding a huge axe, rod, sword, and spear, respectively, as they charged at the Ice Phoenix that was dashing over. In the doctrine of the Illuminati, the ancient god Zogar had released countless wills after he slipped into deep slumber. The main one was the existence that was called the God King of Light, while the second was the Light of War, followed by the Light of Guardianship, the Light of Life, and the Light of Chaos. The Illuminati's four main sanctuaries were established according to this. As the saint of the Sanctuary of Chaos, Edmund mastered the Light of Chaos of Zogar. The 6 ancient gods that Edmund summoned were all condensed by the power of the Light of Chaos, and each of them possessed level 25 power. Of course, due to the fact that they did not have an independent will, they naturally couldn't reach the sanctuary realm, so their strength was probably about the same as that of those pseudo-sanctuary powerhouses. However, the strength of the 6 gods, that were equal in strength to pseudo-sanctuary powerhouses, as well as Saint Edmund's abilities, made Lin Li amazed. Besides, Lin Li could tell that what Edmund had shown was clearly not his full strength. As for what level of real strength Edmund had reached, Lin Li had no clear idea either. At this moment, the Ice Phoenix and the 6 god statues were already engaged in battle. Due to the fact that the latter were formed by the power of the Light of Chaos, they were rather resistant to the extreme chilliness emitted by the Ice Phoenix. Hence, they were not frozen. However, the origin power of the Ice Phoenix and its terrifying abilities allowed even light to be frozen. Hence, the 6 god statues, could only hold it back. While the 6 god statues were embroiled in a scuffle with the Ice Phoenix, High Priest Power and Elder Zoomer were also launching full-blown attacks at the Ice Phoenix under Saint Edmund's lead. The powerful magic spells were sweeping over like a thunderstorm. Those on Lin Li's side naturally didn't idle, either, as they would cast some spells from time to time. Although the power seemed intimidating, they did not stand out at all among the attacks launched by everyone. The 2 undead servants and Connorus could be considered to be fully engaged in the battle, not sparing any effort. Although Connorus and the 2 undead servants had yet to reach the sanctuary realm, and their strength was worlds apart from the Ice Phoenix, they were experienced in battles, and could be considered old comrades. Having fought various tough battles against powerful opponents, they had long built a tacit understanding. Although Connorus and the 2 undead servants might not be able to play a key role in a battle of such a high level despite sharing a tacit understanding, they could at least ensure their own safety. In particular, Connorus, the ancient demon deity, who mastered the tricks of deception and conspiracy, was the best at blending in. Connorus waved the Eternal Frost Blade, and launched a space slash that cut through the ice crystal cloud around the Ice Phoenix before slashing the Ice Phoenix itself. Even though the space slash had broken through the ice crystal cloud, it still could not really hurt the Ice Phoenix. While driving Crimson the humorous Wyrm and hovering around the periphery of the battlefield, Ufalusi wielded his skeleton staff and chanted various curses. Although it didn't seem very effective, they were eating away at the power of the Ice Phoenix bit by bit, just like ants gnawing on an elephant. Perhaps their power might really erupt at a critical juncture. However, what was strange was that Norfler could still be seen during the battle at first, but he somehow disappeared from the battlefield as it progressed. During the battle, High Priest Power had been watching Lin Li's subordinates. Although he had almost suffered because he was distracted, the hatred in his heart still made him unable to control his eyes. On the one hand, he wanted Lin Li's people to get killed by the Phoenix, but on the other hand, he wanted to find a reason that would convince Edmund. In High Priest Power's opinion, he would be able to convince Saint Edmund to change his mind as long as he discovered that the Tower of Dusk was doing little. After all, what Saint Edmund needed was cannon fodder, and not a bunch of wastrels waiting to enjoy the benefits. However, how would Lin Li let High Priest Power see any flaws? Although he didn't go all out during the battle, their performance was beyond reproach. He didn't release those powerful magic spells for nothing, and if there were no effects, it could only be attributed to the overpowering strength of the Ice Phoenix. If Lin Li was blamed for not attracting the Ice Phoenix over, it could only be said that the 3 sanctuary powerhouses of the Gilded Kingdom were too detestable. The 2 undead servants and Connorus hadn't reached the sanctuary realm yet, but they were already fighting around the Ice Phoenix. Even if High Priest Power wanted to pick on them, he couldn't find a flaw to pinpoint. At this point, High Priest Power suddenly noticed that Norfler the vampire from the Tower of Dusk had actually disappeared. A vampire who had not stepped into the sanctuary realm would not play a significant role in a battle of such a level. However, out of disdain and hatred towards the Tower of Dusk, High Priest Power immediately felt that the Tower of Dusk was probably up to some kind of conspiracy. With that in mind, High Priest Power even somewhat disregarded his own safety, and took the risk of letting himself get distracted to search the battlefield. All of a sudden, he discovered that there seemed to be some changes in the Ice Phoenix as some golden orbs began to appear on its neck. After seeing the appearance of the golden orbs, High Priest Power was instantly astonished. It turned out that the golden orb was actually a bat that was shrouded in golden light. At the thought of the vampire that had disappeared from the battlefield, he knew that the identity of this golden bat was naturally self-evident. But what exactly does that vampire want, running to the neck of the Ice Phoenix? High Priest Power couldn't imagine it at all, and he wondered if the vampire was sucking the blood of the Ice Phoenix. No way. Is that vampire not afraid that he might collapse from an excessive consumption of blood? Besides, that Ice Phoenix's blood must contain ice origin power, and a single drop of it can freeze an ocean. That vampire must be tired of living to actually dare to suck the blood of the Ice Phoenix. Indeed, vampires had to be selective about the blood they sucked, as the blood from creatures like the Ice Phoenix contained extreme power, which would be akin to poison for the vampires. In particular, the Ice Phoenix's blood contained the power of ice, and vampires were cold-blooded creatures. Hence, their blood would be frozen as soon as they sucked in such power, even if they might otherwise be able to withstand it. However, High Priest Power probably would have never expected Norfler to be an extraordinary vampire. The main power in Norfler's blood was the blood essence of the Ice Blast Wyrm Sindera, which was the strongest of all Ice Blast Wyrms. The power of ice in its blood was not any worse than the Ice Phoenix. In fact, if Norfler could completely absorb the blood essence of the Ice Blast Wyrm in Sanctuary Realm, the power would be enough for him to reach the Sanctuary Realm. However, To completely absorb the blood essence of the ice blast Wyrm Sindera was difficult for Norfaller. Even if Lin Li gave him some potions, he could only absorb it bit by bit over a long period of time. Perhaps he would be able to absorb it fully only after hundreds or thousands of years. At this moment, Norfaller met the Ice Phoenix, and it was very different compared to the Ice Blast Wyrm Cinder's power. The Phoenixes had power as their origin, and the Ice Phoenix laws of ice were actually not simply a derivative of the laws of water, but a type of laws that rejected the power of fire. If the origin of fire was at an extremely high temperature, the ice origin of the Ice Phoenix was at an extremely low temperature that rejected the power of fire. The power of the Ice Blast Wyrm had laws that used the element of ice, while the Ice Phoenix rejected all fire elements. Hence, for Norfaller, the power of the Ice Phoenix complemented the power of the Ice Blast Wyrm Sindera. Conorus and Ulfalusis attacks were actually meant for creating an opportunity for Norfaller to get close to the Ice Phoenix's body and suck the Ice Phoenix's blood. In the beginning, when High Priest Power saw Norfaller of the Tower of Dusk sucking the blood of the Ice Phoenix, he thought that Norfaller had a death wish, but he soon discovered that the power emanating from the vampire's body was actually growing at a terrifying rate, while the golden glow of its body began to emit countless silver magic runes. Damn it, can he really suck the blood of the Ice Phoenix? If this vampire can really absorb the blood of the Ice Phoenix, God knows what kind of monster it will grow into. The strength of the Tower of Dusk will then be greatly increased again. High Priest Power suddenly had an idea, and he suddenly turned the staff in his hand. All the magic he had cast was focused on the Ice Phoenix's neck. In any case, he was only attacking the Ice Phoenix. If it affected the vampire would have to count himself unlucky. However, Lin Li had been thinking about how to improve the strength of a few of his subordinates. At this moment, he was finally given a godsend opportunity, so how could he sit back and watch others ruin things? After High Priest Power cast his magic, Lin Li similarly waved the Helios scepter, and a massive light and darkness sword emerged, stabbing into High Priest Power's magic spells. Next, with a gentle twist, the light and darkness sword vanished. Flick, what are you doing? Why are you blocking my attack? Are you on the same side as that Ice Phoenix? High Priest Power hollered furiously, angered that his plans were foiled. However, Lin Li smiled, and nonchalantly said, High Priest Power, must I spell some things out loud? At this moment, Edmund and Zoomer had also discovered the abnormality on the Ice Phoenix. They also saw that the golden bat was becoming brighter and brighter on the Ice Phoenix's neck, and thus they could naturally guess what High Priest Power was doing. However, there was nothing they could say in this situation, since High Priest Power was a member of their team. President Flick, I believe he just didn't notice for a moment. This is a misunderstanding. Please consider things from a bigger perspective, Elder Zoomer explained loudly to Lin Li while casting magic. Calling it a misunderstanding was really a universal explanation. Everything could be explained by calling it a misunderstanding. However, Lin Li now also had no intention to fall out with the Gilded Kingdom. As long as High Priest Power stopped getting up to some tricks, Lin Li wouldn't bother too much. After all, they were all now facing an Ice Phoenix that was at the peak of the Sanctuary Realm. High Priest Power, whose plans had failed, did not dare to harbor those thoughts again after Saint Edmund shot him a menacing gaze. After all, High Priest Power could not compare to Saint Edmund in terms of power, status, and aptitude. Of course, Edmund was not blaming High Priest Power for those tricks, but rather for failing and getting caught. If High Priest Power was not so eager to make a move, they could have easily killed off Norfaller with the power of the three powerhouses. At that time, they would even have every right to justify themselves, as they could blame it on Norfaller for going to the neck of the Ice Phoenix. However, the failure of High Priest Power revealed their agenda, and Edmund and the others had to keep their guard up during the battle. Otherwise, if they were careless, the Tower of Dusk would get a hold on them. Now, they could only hope that Norfaller would collapse under the power of the Ice Phoenix. Otherwise, they would be in trouble. Unfortunately, as the battle progressed, the several sanctuary powerhouses could obviously sense that the power of the Ice Phoenix was rapidly declining. Although they were besieging it, the fact that Norfaller was sucking the neck of the Ice Phoenix was probably an important reason. Finally, the golden bat on the neck of the Ice Phoenix emitted a dazzling ray of light that was as bright as the sun. The light enveloped almost the entire upper body of the Ice Phoenix. After the light faded, everyone saw that Norfaller, who was on the neck of the Ice Phoenix, had already returned to human form, but he was still holding the neck of the Ice Phoenix and drinking the fresh blood. At the same time, the several sanctuary powerhouses could sense the increase in the mana fluctuations that Norfaller's body emitted when he was absorbing the blood of the Ice Phoenix. He was charging towards the sanctuary realm without stopping. When the mana fluctuation reached a limit, they saw a pair of wings expanding and turning silver on Norfaller's back. There were golden patterns that constituted arcane ancient magic runes, each of which exuded a mysterious and powerful aura on them. It was just like with the ancient beasts. Immediately afterwards, the mana fluctuations increased again, and a bright red color began to appear in the space around Norfalar too. The bright sanguine color continuously became denser while expanding outwards. Soon, the entire space seemed to have been submerged in a sea of blood. Finally, Norfalar suddenly let go of the ice phoenix's neck and let out a whistle that made heaven and earth quake. At this moment, he finally stepped into the sanctuary realm and turned his domain into a world of fresh blood. The boundless ocean of blood that was full of death aura and also vitality was surging in the domain world. Sanctuary realm, a vampire of the sanctuary realm. The crowd of the Gilded Kingdom was a little dumbfounded. In Anral, no vampire had ever reached the sanctuary realm. In fact, for creatures like vampires, stepping into the legendary realm was already considered rare, and no vampires had reached the sanctuary realm even in myths. Norfalar might be the first vampire in Anral to reach the sanctuary realm. It was unprecedented, and probably would never occur again. After all, not every vampire could be as lucky as Norfalar to have absorbed the blood of Ice Blast Wyrm Sindera and Ice Phoenix. Besides, it was not just a matter of luck. Without Lin Li, the pharmaceutics guru who used pharmaceutics to blend the blood of the Ice Blast Wyrm into his blood, one drop of it would be enough to make any vampire dead. Besides, without the Ice Blast Wyrm Cinder's blood as the foundation, it would be impossible to absorb the Ice Phoenix's blood. However, at this time, the Ice Phoenix also reacted. It was no wonder that it was getting weaker and weaker. Its blood was being sucked by a filthy creature. Seeing that Norfalar actually dared to advance to another realm in front of it, the Ice Phoenix was so furious that it grabbed Norfalar with its claws. Although the Ice Phoenix was a little weakened, it was a powerful existence that was close to the level of the gods. After all, even a high-ranking sanctuary powerhouse would not dare to resist it. Besides, Norfalar was a vampire that had just stepped into the sanctuary realm. At this moment, Norfalar was immersed in his comprehension of the sanctuary realm, while the mana in his body was continuously increasing. He couldn't dodge the giant claws of the Ice Phoenix at all. Seeing this situation, the people on the Gilded Kingdom's side were overjoyed. In particular, High Priest Power seemed to have already seen the young president of the Tower of Dusk getting all furious and dejected after Norfalar got killed by the Ice Phoenix. The people on Lin Li's side were indeed astonished, and they immediately got ready to save Norfalar. After all, this was the first subordinate of Lin Li to reach the sanctuary realm, and one of the first few to become his servant. Regardless of the perspective, he could not watch Norfalar die. However, as soon as he raised the Helios scepter, he lowered it again slowly, as if he had given up. Almost at the same time that Lin Li put down his scepter, the Ice Phoenix's huge claws had already grabbed Norfalar's body. A single blow was all it would take to tear Norfalar apart. Was a powerhouse who had just reached the sanctuary realm going to die before he could display the mighty power of the sanctuary realm? President Falik, it's such a pity. You could have had one more sanctuary realm powerhouse as your subordinate. I didn't expect this to happen, High Priest Power said gloatingly. However, as soon as High Priest Power said that, he saw that the Ice Phoenix had once again changed. Norfalar, who had already been grabbed and torn apart by the Ice Phoenix, merged into the sea of blood in the domain world in the blink of an eye. At a spot far away from the Ice Phoenix, a bloodied man emerged from the sea of blood, and his sanguine color quickly faded, revealing his original face. It was Norfalar, who everyone thought had been killed by the Ice Phoenix. Seeing this scene, High Priest Power's face suddenly turned burning hot, and it was as if he had been given a hard slap on his face. On the other hand, Lin Li, who had been a bit nervous, smiled. It turned out that just as he was about to rescue Norfalar, he received a message from Norfalar via soul contact. The latter told him not to worry. The domain world of fresh blood created by Norfalar, who had stepped into the sanctuary realm, might not have a very powerful defense or offense, but it possessed almost infinite vitality. In the world of fresh blood, he could be considered to have an immortal body. As long as the world of blood did not dry up, he would be able to revive and be reborn. Besides, the blood essences of the Ice Blast Wyrm and Ice Phoenix in Norfalar's body clashed during the fusion. The two powerful streams of energy were not something that Norfalar could easily control. His strength might even plummet because of their conflict. However, with the death this time, Norfalar fused the two streams of power into the world of fresh blood. Not only did it resolve the problem in his body, it also strengthened the world of fresh blood and made it even more perfect. Besides, the world of fresh blood was likewise his power source, and the two powers could also continue to enhance his abilities. The mana fluctuations that emanated from the body of Norfalar who had been reborn had already reached the strength of a mid-stage sanctuary powerhouse. The sanguine-colored clouds stained the entire space red, and the Ice Phoenix's body was stained with blood too. Seeing such a scene, the people of the Gilded Kingdom knew that it was impossible to stop the vampire from advancing. Saint Edmund could take it easy, and he pointed the scepter in his hand forward before saying, "What are you waiting for? There's an urgent matter at hand. Try to end the battle as soon as possible." With Edmund's order, High Priest Power and Elder Zoomer did not dare to slow down, and immediately continued to attack the Ice Phoenix. At the same time, after the mana fluctuations stabilized, Norfaller also immediately joined his companions, and resumed the battle. The strength of Norfaller, who had successfully stepped into the Sanctuary Realm, was no weaker than any mid-rank Sanctuary powerhouses. In particular, his power contained the inherent power of the Ice Phoenix. He waved his hand and cast an intense sanguine glow that immediately formed a deep wound on the Ice Phoenix's body. Besides, in the process of the battle, the Ice Phoenix's body was continuously suppressing the blood that could not stop gushing out. It turned into a mass of blood that entered Norfaller's world of fresh blood. Even if the Ice Phoenix was already at the peak of the Sanctuary Realm, and had comprehended the mysteries of the Realm of Gods, it couldn't withstand the siege of so many Sanctuary powerhouses. After all, it had yet to reach the Realm of the Gods, and was far from being able to disregard Sanctuary powerhouses. Finally, after a few hours of fighting and an intense battle, the Ice Phoenix, which had lost a lot of blood and was covered in wounds, raised its head and roared into the sky, as if a meteor had crashed into the ground. After the battle ended, Ulfalusi came close to Lin Li, and yearningly said, "Dear master, I have a request, but I don't know if I can get your consent." Lin Li was in the process of learning about Norfaller's acquired abilities. After hearing Ulfalusi's words, he nodded, and indifferently said, "Just tell me what you want." "Respected master, I hope to obtain the corpse of that Ice Phoenix as a way to improve my strength, and better serve you." Seeing that Norfaller had already stepped into the Sanctuary Realm, Ulfalusi hoped to also improve because he was still in the Legendary Realm. Being anxious, he naturally thought of the corpse of the Ice Phoenix. Ulfalusi had become Lin Li's servant after Norfaller because he'd lost to Lin Li in a battle. Although he initially did not willingly submit to Lin Li as a servant, and had only signed the soul contract under a death threat, he began to enjoy the benefits of being Lin Li's servant over some time. He no longer had to be on tenterhooks and remain sneaky all the time. Hence, he stopped being resistant to his identity as a servant, and like before. Besides, although Ulfalusi's skeleton domain had been destroyed by Lin Li with holy light during their battle, which caused him to fall to the Legendary Realm, his strength coupled with the legendary level Humorous Wyrm Crimson was still much higher than Norfaller's. Hence, he could definitely be called Lin Li's best fighter. However, at some point, Ulfalusi found that his position as the best fighter had gradually gotten further and further away from him. As his combat level increased, some of his massacre means had lost their effect, such as the death vortex that originally caught one's enemy off guard and could summon countless undead armies. Now, they were all useless in the face of Sanctuary powerhouses. Without enough strength, he would not be qualified to explore with Lin Li, and if he couldn't do that, there would be no way to get more treasures that could improve his strength. It was a vicious cycle that Ulfalusi felt trapped in. This could perhaps be considered his last chance. If he still couldn't improve his strength, he might have nothing to do with Lin Li in the future anymore. Logically speaking, the team of the Tower of Dusk and the team of the Gilded Kingdom were considered to be in a temporary partnership. On the other hand, Norfaller had already sucked the blood of the Ice Phoenix. In that case, the Ice Phoenix corpse should also be given to the Gilded Kingdom, which was considered an unspoken tacit agreement in their cooperation. Ulfalusi was also aware of this. After all, it was not the time to turn against the Gilded Kingdom now. However, the corpse of the Ice Phoenix was too tempting to him. It was not just the corpse of a prehistoric magical beast, but a corpse that contained a wisp of the power of the gods. Ulfalusi had a feeling that his opportunity to step into the Sanctuary Realm was very likely to be the corpse of the Ice Phoenix. If he could really obtain the corpse of the Ice Phoenix and fuse it with Humorous Wyrm Crimson, not only will the strength of the Humorous Wyrm Crimson improve by leaps and bounds, he would also gain massive benefits from it, because he was the summoner. It was out of this consideration that Ulfalusi mustered the courage to make his request to Lin Li despite knowing that it would be difficult to gain approval. He was rather anxious too. After all, he was not asking Lin Li just to give him something, but to deal with the Gilded Kingdom. However, after hearing Ulfalusi's request, Lin Li didn't seem to feel that his request was too much. In fact, how could Lin Li not hope that all of his men would be able to step into the Sanctuary Realm sooner, and provide him with more help? Now, Norfaller had already stepped into the Sanctuary Realm, and would be able to compete with a mid-rank Sanctuary powerhouse. If Ulfalusi could also successfully step into the Sanctuary Realm this time, he would not be inferior to the Gilded Kingdom's team. Therefore, in the face of Ulfalusi's request, Lin Li was not upset at all. Instead, He even turned to face Saint Edmund, and said, "Saint Edmund, I need this ice phoenix corpse for something. Name your conditions." Lin Li didn't even beat around the bush at all, and he simply got straight to the point. It was as if he was bent on getting the ice phoenix corpse. Of course, another reason was that he knew that Saint Edmund definitely wouldn't fall out with him, because of the ice phoenix at this point. Hence, there was room for negotiation. Besides, if the corpse of the ice phoenix was in the hands of the Gilded Kingdom, it wouldn't be indispensable to them, even though it couldn't be considered worthless to them, either, since there was a peak sanctuary realm magical crystal in it. After all, only when the corpse was in the hands of a necromancer could its value be maximized. However, before Edmund could say anything, High Priest Power anxiously yelled, What a joke! Do you think that that's an ordinary magical beast's corpse? You guys have already obtained the most valuable blood of the Ice Phoenix, so this corpse should belong to us." Since Ufalusi was a lich, High Priest Power was naturally able to guess what Lin Li was planning to do with the Ice Phoenix corpse now. High Priest Power was already very upset when the vampire of the Tower of Dusk entered the sanctuary realm by feeding on the blood of the Ice Phoenix, so how could he sit back and watch one more member of the Tower of Dusk turn into a sanctuary powerhouse? However, High Priest Power was spouting nonsense when he said that the Ice Phoenix's blood was the most valuable part of its body. The value of an item also depended on the beholder. The blood of the Ice Phoenix was probably akin to garbage to the others, unless they were Norfaler. After all, not everyone could absorb the power in the blood of the Ice Phoenix. Even if it was used in the concoction of a potion, perhaps only a pharmaceutics guru would be able to use it. Lin Li knew that High Priest Power did not have the final say in the Gilded Kingdom's team, and thus he naturally did not bother to argue about anything with him. Therefore, he didn't even glance at High Priest Power, and simply looked at Saint Edmund, waiting for him to answer. Saint Edmund was no fool, and he had naturally thought of the problem that High Priest Power could think of. Although he did not react as intensely as High Priest Power did, that did not mean that he was willing to see the Tower of Dusk's strength improving again. Originally, the Gilded Kingdom's team had 3 sanctuary powerhouses, while the Tower of Dusk's team only had 1 sanctuary powerhouse. Even if Lin Li was incredibly powerful, there was Saint Edmund to deal with him. However, the actual situation was not as simple as adding and subtracting power. If that was the case, it was almost certain that the Gilded Kingdom's team surpassed the Tower of Dusk in terms of strength. The first reason why Edmund did not agree to the proposal of High Priest Power earlier was that he did not want to create any problems. After all, the battle between sanctuary powerhouses was not an ordinary gang fight. Another reason was that he wanted to make the Tower of Dusk the cannon fodder so as to weaken the strength of the Tower of Dusk's team, so that they could enjoy some benefits. However, the Tower of Dusk actually now had an additional sanctuary powerhouse, whose power was at the mid-stage of the sanctuary realm. That closed the gap between the two teams by a huge margin, and it would not be easy for the Gilded Kingdom to defeat the Tower of Dusk. Although a sanctuary-level vampire was not enough to disrupt Edmund's plan, this could definitely be considered a variable. In this case, how would Edmund be willing to see another sanctuary powerhouse emerge in the Tower of Dusk's team? President Flick, this Ice Phoenix is already at the peak level of the sanctuary realm. You should know very well how valuable it is. You say that you need it for something, but so do we since it's such a precious item, Elder Zoomer said to Lin Li after gaining Saint Edmund's approval. Elder Zoomer was just unwilling to get into a conflict with the Tower of Dusk, especially in this current situation, but it didn't mean that he was biased towards the Tower of Dusk. Hence, deep down, he likewise did not want the Tower of Dusk's strength to increase any further. The Ice Phoenix's corpse was a treasure, and each feather was valuable. How could he let the Tower of Dusk have it? Lin Li had long expected the Gilded Kingdom to turn him down, but since it was Elder Zoomer who addressed the request, it meant that there was still room for discussion. Hence, after hearing Elder Zoomer's words, Lin Li still had a faint smile on his face, and said, "This Ice Phoenix is indeed a treasure, but it's not easy to turn it into something of real value. Elder Zoomer, you should also know that the origin power of the Ice Phoenix is actually the laws of ice. Hence, even if it is used to create some magical equipment, very few people can use it. In this case, where does its value lie? The Ice Phoenix's body was full of treasures, but if he couldn't use it, it would all be a waste. It was just like how the value of a pile of gold could only be realized when it was used to purchase things. If stored in a warehouse, it would be as good as nothing. The various parts of the Ice Phoenix corpse could be turned into magical equipment, but if no one could use it, the problem would not be solved, and the value of the Ice Phoenix corpse would stagnate at being part of a collection. Lin Li's words had really left Elder Zoomer speechless for a while. The power of the Ice Phoenix was indeed too extreme. Even though it had a peak sanctuary level magical crystal, It probably couldn't be used as a mana source of an alchemy array because of that reason. Although Elder Zoomer wanted to say some things out of spite, he was not good at lying, and couldn't bring himself to say it. However, High Priest Power did not care about that. After hearing that Lin Li seemed to be belittling the Gilded Kingdom, he immediately said in anger and annoyance, "President Flick, you're being too nosy. Since we want the Ice Phoenix, we naturally have a way to bring out its value. Besides, even if we can't use it, and just leave it in the warehouse, that's still our business." Upon hearing High Priest Power's words, even Saint Edmund and Elder Zoomer could not help but frown. Although there was some truth to this, it made them feel uncomfortable. It was as if Power were saying that the Gilded Kingdom and the Illuminati were extremely incompetent, even though they were indeed unable to optimize the use of the Ice Phoenix. Just like what Lin Li said, Power could not blatantly state it.
Thank you for watching Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share and subscribe. Have a great day.